Hello. Welcome to the Armchair Expert. I'm Dax Shepard. Today I'm going to talk to a good friend of mine, Jimmy James Kimmel. You know him from Jimmy Kimmel Live, or maybe you fell in love with him first on The Man Show or Win Ben Stein's Money. Or maybe you used to listen to him on the radio. Or maybe you went to college with him in Arizona or Nevada or wherever he went. We'll find out shortly. He's a very good man. He's a generous man. He's a father. He has a huge heart. And the proof of that is that he would find time to chat with us in an otherwise brutal schedule. Welcome, James.
He's an armchair expert. He's an armchair expert.
Tell me when you're ready. Jimmy, welcome to my attic.
Yeah, this is really your attic.
Yeah, did this make you at all jealous?
Of the fact that you have an attic?
I mean, it's such a piece of shit, yet I find that I want to move into this little space because
It's
there's
not
no
a piece
kids.
of shit. It's nice.
You like it?
Yeah, I do
good.
like it.
Right?
What's not to like?
Well, there's no door to the bathroom. for
That's
one.
Kristen's issue.
I'm fine with that.
Right. Like when you first moved to LA, if you had this as an apartment, wouldn't you have been thrilled?
Can I tell you something? I'm going to be completely honest, and I hope this doesn't upset you, but on my way in here, because you're doing a lot of construction,
Yes.
I thought maybe I'll pee outside before I would have actually peed in the lot.
Yeah.
Never mind no door on the bathroom. That
Yes,
doesn't bother me at all.
That's immaterial. But there is something about this little space because there's no kids here and there's not a wife here and that's a pull-out couch you're sitting on.
The slant of the roof is comforting in a way.
It really is. Yeah. Yeah. It's open enough, yet it's tight in here.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I have fantasies of moving in here.
You will in a way.
Yeah. Eventually. Kristen will tire of my shit. And
I don't
I'll
mean
end
you'll
up
move in permanently, but when they're looking for you, this is where they'll look
find.
first.
Yeah. But I'm really grateful that you came because you're incredibly busy. I did not want to ask you to come. This is my
know, that's
worst
weird because-
thing. Kristen told you that, right? When she was on the
Kristen
show.
told me. I was like, what? That's crazy.
I probably drafted an email to you over the course of 4 weeks, like 12 times, and then
That's
just couldn't
ridiculous.
send it. Yeah.
You could have told me, will you come talk for an hour without it being on tape, and I would have come.
Do you think so? Because
Yes.
you do.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because I often think, thank God you have that fucking show because that's how I end up seeing you. Not because of any fault of either of ours, but we have two kids.
I don't think
and-
it's good though, and I'll tell you why. Because I understand that.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way. I feel the same way about like Howard Stern. I listen to him on the radio,
Right.
And so I know everything that's going on in his life,
Yeah.
but he doesn't know anything that's
No,
going
no,
on
no.
in my life. And so I kind of get what I need as far as updates and
Yeah.
his take on things.
Yeah.
And he doesn't get anything back from me. So he calls me every once in a while. And sometimes I feel bad, like I should probably call him, but I don't need to call him.
Right.
Because he's on the radio.
What are you going to ask him? It would be a redundant question.
I know every
Yes.
little detail of his
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
And he's not on Instagram, so he couldn't possibly know what's going on with you.
Right.
Yes.
And then my wife updates the personal side of our lives on her
bad.
Instagram account.
Okay. Right. Right.
Which our wives are both very, back and forth with that stuff.
Yes.
I look on it when like every 8th time I'm on the toilet. I check that stuff.
So I was a very diehard Twitter person, as I believe you were, or maybe you still are.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know if I'd say I'm diehard. But
Okay. Well, I was a junkie for it.
Right.
And then I had an Instagram account, but I really didn't do anything on it. And I didn't follow people that interest me. Nothing. And then after the election, I was like, I gotta get off this Twitter thing. And then I kind of fell in love with Instagram because it's 100% positive. Like, do you have an account that you post shit on?
I do, yeah. And I post stuff, but not very much.
But it's generally like 100% positive.
If I did anything other than go to work and then go back home,
Yeah.
I would post. But
Right, your
I
drive,
don't. And
right.
I wind up posting like pictures of pancakes I made.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I'll take pictures and I'll think, oh, this is kind of funny. And I think, no, it's not funny. It's boring.
Yes. Well, the reason I was drawn to Twitter is I can draft a funny 140 character thought.
Right. Words you always
But
have.
the last thing I want to be is in a photo. I hate
Right.
how I look in photos. I don't want to be in those.
Or looking for funny things to photograph.
Yeah, I don't really know how to be funny in a photograph.
Yeah, it's different. It's easier though, Instagram. And you're
Yes.
right, it is more positive.
It really is. And so I was on that just almost exclusively. Then I figured out how it's fun because I started following all these like off-road dudes and people falling off staircases. There's this account, OSHA, Is This Okay? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's just guys on work sites that doing the most dangerous things possible, usually in another country, and someone falls from like 100 feet, but they somehow live. It's fantastic.
There's one I like. It's super 70s and just has things from the 70s, toys and baseball cards. And
Yeah.
I like looking at that.
Yeah, I have one that's like 70s muscle cars.
And I follow all the chefs too because I like to see, well, I just like to look at the food.
Sure.
Yeah. What you have a deep. I'm not going to uncover anything that's not known about you, but you have a deep obsession with chefs.
Yeah, cook food really more than anything.
Like when I go to your house, it's pretty evenly split between like actors and chefs.
Yeah.
Would you say that's accurate?
And cousins.
well, family members. Yeah. It's actually 70% family members and then 30% divided.
Yeah, I have a couple of buddies in particular. Adam Perry Lang, who's
Yeah.
a barbecue chef,
Great
and
dude.
Chris Bianco, who's a pizza chef. Of course, they both do many other things besides those things, but we do most everything together.
Yeah. And do you find that that's a super easy hang for you because you guys are busy doing the activity of cooking?
Well, I always like to be doing something, and so even when I'm watching TV, I've got something going on. I'm working on
Yes.
something. I'm never really 100%
All in.
focused on anything.
Right.
So the idea of socializing and then kind of learning how to do things and to be making food at the same time,
Yeah.
that appeals to me.
Yeah. And you're not like, at no point are you intimidated that these guys are amazing cooks and you're an amateur. That doesn't cross
No.
your mind, right?
Well, it does, but I'm not intimidated. I'm eager to learn their ways and their ways of looking at things.
That's a good quality of yours. Like you can receive instruction, right?
yeah.
Yeah. I don't do one thing that required instruction. Like if you had to be taught it, I don't do it. 'Cause
Right.
I'm just incapable of receiving.
I have that to a certain, but with cooking and I've learned things that I think apply to all areas of life. And I'll tell you one weird thing that I learned from my friends Chris and Adam.
Yeah.
So I make a marinara sauce, and I've been making it for 25 years.
Yeah.
Twice a week at least. And when you make something over and over again, you improve it. It changes slightly over the years, whatever. And so it never occurred to me that the way to make a great marinara sauce is to use great tomatoes, even though the tomatoes are 99% of the recipe.
Yeah.
So the idea, though, of opening a bunch of cans of tomatoes and tasting them and figuring out which ones were the best ones.
Well, you read a book about tomatoes
I did.
one summer, right? It was a big book.
I read a 550-page book about tomatoes.
This is one of the many things that blew my mind about you, that was your summer reading. And then I thank you for reading that book because I don't have to now because I think you condensed the only 5 interesting things about the book was
So interesting.
well, but you told me that when they list like the exhibitors of tomatoes, be it Vaughn's or whatever, whoever's selling tomatoes, that on the list of the 5 things they're looking for, taste isn't in the top 5.
it's not
right?
one of them.
It's not one of them, right? It's like color, it's size,
Durability.
it's durability on the shelf, all these things. And taste isn't even in the criteria when they're ordering.
It's not. And we don't think about it until if you put an heirloom tomato in your mouth
Yeah.
next to one of these. It's more ball than tomato. It's closer to a sporting good than it is to a fruit.
Yeah.
It's a huge difference.
But are you all so? And then you've gone to Italy a bunch of times, I'm sure, right?
I've been there 6 or 7 times, I think.
Yeah. And so the tomatoes there are way different. Yeah. Because here,
No,
They're not?
you can get great tomatoes everywhere, but you're not going to get better produce than in Southern California.
yeah, it's pretty
Central
crazy,
California.
right? Yeah, we just got back. Monica, Kristen, and the kids and I were just in Turks and Caicos at an all-inclusive resort, beaches.
I saw pictures of that on
Right,
Instagram.
right. Yeah, suspicious pictures,
Yeah.
I'm sure. And it was awesome. There was a water park for the kids. The beach is phenomenal. Everything was great about it, truly. Except for the fact that you can't get around the fact that the fucking produce has to leave on a boat from Miami and come to that island 500 miles away. And it certainly wasn't grown in Miami. So it already got flown or railroaded from California, right?
Right.
And it doesn't matter what the chefs are doing. Like the lettuce is white.
Right.
That's just how it is. You can't cook your way around how shitty the produce is. And you're from Brooklyn, then Vegas, but coming from Detroit and going to a grocery store in like January and shit was fully in season when I moved here was mind blowing.
Right.
The rest of the country, we're so
it
spoiled.
Shouldn't be
here.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like ripe tomatoes in January.
I went to an island in the Bahamas, and the guy told me the boat comes on Tuesdays.
For the food.
Yeah. So by Monday, things are getting a little
Yeah.
starting to become stew.
Yeah, you have kind of a superpower, which is wherever you go on vacation, like a natural disaster occurs.
Well, it has
Right.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wherever I go, there's some kind of a natural disaster.
Yeah, because you went to Bora Bora and I was like, oh my God, you're going to love this place. I was there for a month. I could have stayed for years. It's the greatest. I was so jealous. And you got there and the tsunami happened, right?
Well, I don't know if you remember the lead up to this because you were telling me it was great. And I always, you see those pictures of those huts over the water. And you think, oh, that's where I want to be in one of those over the water huts. And it looks so great. Yeah. So then I looked on Google Maps and I noticed that is a little speck of brown and then nothing but blue. And I thought, well, the people shouldn't live on an island like this. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then I had to speak to you and a few other people who'd been there for reassurance that I wasn't going to just be swallowed up by the ocean.
Right.
Because, we think, we're fond of the ocean, but it doesn't care about us.
You're so vulnerable and it really hits you when you're flying into the place because when you're at 30,000 feet and they start to descend, you're like looking for where you're landing.
It's crazy that people even got there.
Yeah, it really is nuts.
And then I have had recurring nightmares about tsunamis since I was a kid. And I used to
based on that weird movie that was Tidal Wave or whatever?
No, this is way before that.
Okay.
And my dad told me we'd never discussed this, but after I wrote an article about this, my dad told me that he has them too.
Oh, really?
There's got to be some weird psychological thing there, but it's stress related, and I'm sure it means something, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So I was panicked about it, and my wife really wanted to go there. I was like, "There's going to be a tsunami." She's like laughing, "Stop it! This is ridiculous." And I have this on videotape, so this is not even like one of those stories I've embellished for comedy's sake, but I'm videotaping my wife. We're sitting by the pool, and all of a sudden it starts raining. Like heavy drops of rain, like each drop has like a pint in it.
Yeah.
And I said, "This is it. The tsunami's coming." She starts laughing at me. "You're being ridiculous." So we go back to the room because it's raining. And I get on my computer and I see that that in Japan, there's been an earthquake.
Right.
And I'm like,
but wait, you hopped on your computer unrelated?
Unrelated.
Okay. It's not like
Totally
you were so
unrelated.
convinced you then started researching it.
I hopped on my computer because
Okay.
that's what I do 70 or 80 times a day.
Sure.
And I got on a computer and there was an earthquake in Japan and I have no idea where we are. I mean, like my sense of geography.
I've been there. I have no idea where it's at in relation to
Ridiculous.
Japan. Yeah.
I'm like, well, I don't know if we're 40 miles from Japan or a million.
Yeah.
Could be any of those two things. So I look it up and we're in French Polynesia and we're not close to Japan, but a lot closer than we are to Japan right now.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, oh no, there's an earthquake. That could mean there's going to be a tsunami.
Yeah.
And I then hit refresh. I found the tsunami alert center for the world and I hit refresh.
Sounds like a great vacation so far.
Like 140 times. Like every 40 seconds I'd hit refresh.
Really?
And then it popped up.
No.
And I had a mixture of terror and real power. I knew this was going to happen.
Yes.
It's the ultimate I told you so.
Yes.
Like this I told you so happens as you're being washed out to sea.
There's that line in Pulp Fiction where he's complaining about that someone keyed his car. And at one point he goes, it'd be worth him keying my car just to catch that motherfucker.
Yeah, right.
So that was going to be my question is part of you has to be so happy that you are right.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because there have been many times I would choose death to be right.
Yeah. And I know that if we survive this, that Molly's going to have to move out of the house.
Yeah.
It's going to be her only option.
Yes, absolutely.
So now, and by the way, before the tsunami warning, I'm calling the front desk asking what's the plan for, and they are, and I've called now 4 times and they are laughing hysterically at me,
Really?
which makes me feel better, to be honest.
Yeah.
But then the alert comes, and they're like, okay,
In what
well,
form? It's there's no siren on that.
no,
island,
it
is
just
there?
said French Polynesian islands.
okay, like on
French Polynesian
CNN or something.
And I was like, that's where we are,
Mm-hmm.
and this is real bad. And I was worried, and I called. I said, "What's the procedure?" They'd had tsunamis before there. They told me what would happen. We will get on a boat. We will go to higher ground. We'll wait there until the danger is past. But they assure me that it's impossible that a wave would be higher than higher ground,
Right.
And we should be okay as long as we get out of there. Blah blah blah. I now pack. We are ready for evacuation.
Yeah, you're in a movie now.
6 hours before the evacuation. I'm fully dressed.
Oh, so from the time of the alert, how long before it actually makes ground?
Well, it was a long time, and that's
Okay.
the good thing about tsunamis. If you're
Yeah.
in a place, you have some kind of access to computers, you know when they're coming.
Right.
So Molly goes to sleep, and I'm laying on the bed with my shoes on, watching CNN, just kind of taking this terror all in.
Yeah, sure.
And
Are you making calls to loved ones and
Yeah.
stuff?
I did email. I emailed loved ones.
Okay.
Even in the face of death, I'm not going to spend the money for an international call.
Sure.
Okay, good.
So
You're gonna die as a
I
man.
let everybody know that there was a good chance we were going to be washed
And
out.
are the emails, are they a mix of like, I don't want to scare them, but I do want to say everything that needs being said?
They're a mix of I don't want to scare them, but I do want to scare them.
Yes. And let them know I'm dead right.
I want to hear some nice words from everyone.
Yeah.
So
You
I
deserve
sent my
that.
family the email, and still Molly thought I was crazy, at this
Yeah.
point, and maybe I was, but the phone rings, and sure enough, they're like, "Get your stuff together. Only take your valuables, and we're evacuating the hotel." It's the middle of the night.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I get to the lobby, and there are guys in the lobby already wearing life preservers.
Oh, wow.
They've got life jackets on. And so I'm happy because I know right away, like, all right, I'm not the biggest wuss in the hotel.
Yeah.
So these guys are actually worse than I am.
Uh-huh.
And it's really, you get to see the worst of people, like people kind of
really?
pushing like ahead to get on the ferries that are going to take you off the island. And
But is there a calmness to the whole thing?
it's the middle of the night, so, and the people have kind of been through this before, so they're calm. But
Some people are shit-faced, presumably, right? Because it's the middle of the night.
a lot of people were drunk.
Yeah. Some people are fucking. Some people are hammered. There's a lot going on in the middle
And all
of the
of
night.
the above.
Yeah.
And so we finally get on this boat, and it is pitch black. I mean, there's not a light, and in the boat, the engine dies in the middle of the thing. Now, I didn't know they actually turned it off. It didn't die, but it sounded like it died.
Yeah.
And the reason they turned it off is because there were other ferries like ahead of us, kind of blocking. They had to wait until the other ferries unloaded, but it was so dark, like we didn't know we were like 100 feet from the shore.
There's no moon out or anything.
Nothing.
Okay. Because from those hotel rooms to the mainland is only like a mile or whatever over the water, right? As I recall. As I remember.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm looking not to the mainland. No, the mainland. It's about a 20-minute flight. So
No. I mean,
that's
you're in
small
Bora Bora,
mainland.
right?
The medium mainland. Yeah, not the full mainland.
Oh, the atoll surrounds this
Yes.
weird looking King Kong volcano looking mountain in the center, right? That's where
Yeah. And so we go to that place, and so anyway, the water, and then I'm like, oh my God, we're now in the worst possible place on a little boat, like waiting for this.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You would
what
have much
time
rather ridden it
Yeah.
out in your over the water villa,
in the
right?
bungalow. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least I could grab onto something, you know. And it was really scary.
Had you been to
That's terrifying.
that little center island prior to that? Did you go there to go to that French restaurant by chance?
Yes, I did.
Right. And did you notice the inordinate amount of feral dogs on that island?
We were where all the dogs were.
Right. Because I had a near death experience in Bora
With the
Bora that I
dogs?
didn't tell you about because I knew you were nervous about going and I didn't want to alarm you. But I had probably, since I was 8 years old, the scariest moment I had as an adult.
Really?
Yes.
What happened?
So Kristen was shooting that movie, Couples Retreat, right? And so they're filming on these barges out in the middle of all this stuff. And I take a boat out there to watch them shoot. And I watch for about an hour and now I'm bored. And then I said, I'd like to go back to the hotel. And they say, oh, we're not going to send the boats back for like another 5 hours. For whatever reason, that was not an option. And I was like, I don't want to sit on this barge for another 5 hours. And I start looking at the little island off, in the distance. And I think in my mind, that's a 10-minute swim. Like I can do that. And you've been there. So, it's like there's a little island, then there's a 100-foot gap in the water, and then another little island, then a 200-foot gap, and then another little island. So I go, I'll just swim to that one, and then I'll walk across the islands. I'll swim the little 100, and then I'll get back to the hotel. I get some flippers. I put my shit in a plastic bag. Kristen's telling me, do not do this. Do not do this. I wait till they call action. So she's distracted, and I jump in and I start swimming, and I'm swimming. And I'm not joking you. I swam for at least 25 minutes, and I lift my head up to look like how close I am to this island. And I am still the exact same distance I was when I was looking at it from the barge. And now I turn around and I look at the barge, and the barge is very, very far away. And I'm having to tell myself, don't start having a panic attack. Like you're pot committed. You got to just keep swimming. So then I was laying on my back. I was trying to relax, whatever. I swam for about an hour in 10 minutes or something. I get to the little island. I'm like, thank God, now I can fucking walk. I take my flippers off. I start walking along the beach, and all of a sudden I hear, and I look, and all these dogs are running on the island, and they're running right at me, and I have to run into the water. I go up to my shoulders, and they're swimming out, but they kind of stop at like 3 feet depth. And I now have to walk in shoulder high water the rest of the way, which was a few miles. And every time I went on one of these islands, these fucking crazy rabid pit bulls would run out and attack me. I'd have to run right back in. Kristen wrapped the whole thing. She goes back. It took me 6 hours probably to get back. My feet were fucking bleeding. I was sunburned. It was out of a movie. I finally get to the door. I knock on it. She opens the door. She thought I was like at the gym or something. She thought I had gone back on a boat, was at the gym. She opens the door. I'm sunburned. My feet are bleeding terribly. She goes, what the fuck happened to you? And I go, I swam back from that barge. I too wrote this really long thing because it was such a harrowing, terrifying experience. Wow. And I kept having these moments where I was like, I need help. I need to get airlifted, or I need some kind of like someone to rescue me because I'm not going to make it back. And there's nothing on those islands other than dogs.
There's no way I would have gone to Bora Bora had you told me that dog story before. No way. It never would happen.
And that's why I didn't tell you. And then you would never have it on Molly that you were
But
dead
it's good
right.
for me to know about I knew about the dogs. I didn't know about pit bulls.
Oh, yes. And again, the plausibility of the story, I wouldn't buy it if I was listening to me, but I'm telling you that the first island had pretty average sized dogs, and I wasn't in a full panic. It wasn't to like the fourth island I got to that it was actual pit bulls.
Pitbull Island.
Pitbull Island, Pitbull Island. And this poor woman who was in a hammock and watching these dogs, she was screaming like no to them, like a local Polynesian lady. Screaming no, they didn't give a fuck. They just ran right past her into the water, and I had to swim out.
So there are people who live on Pitbull Island.
Yes. So the people that are on the main island we went to the French restaurant on where you were evacuated on, they live there, but they all also own those little islands. Like they're communally, they have little barbecue pits there, and they go spend time there. And apparently they're keeping their feral dogs there.
Oh my God.
But it was really, it hadn't been since I was like 8 and got lost in a swamp, and it was screaming for my mom. Like I was really scared.
The closest fear I've had to that is we drove up to Northern California in our Tesla and didn't get it fully charged.
Okay. How'd you get out of that sticky situation?
I wound up spending 4 hours in a Walmart while the car charged.
Yeah, that is terrifying.
Scary.
Yeah, but you had another. Didn't you had another experience like that? Did I imagine that?
Not like that one. I'm not sure.
The thing you wrote was really, really well written, by the way.
Every time, thank you. Every time I go on vacation, I have one day that goes horribly wrong.
I know exactly what it was.
What?
It was that you invited us camping this year, and we arrive at camping.
Oh, yeah.
And there is literally 727s buzzing our campground about 30 feet off the ground because the whole mountain behind us is on fire. And when I say the whole mountain's on fire, and there are planes swooping in over and over again and dumping some kind of chemical on it. And we
was
were just
crazy.
camping a few hundred feet from there, and going to bed that night was very weird because you're like,
sky was
I
red.
guess they've got it under control. Yeah.
Yeah, they said.
And I thought, oh, this must be what all your vacations are like.
It is kind of in a way.
You're
Just
used
bad
to it.
planning. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any fear of fires prior to that?
No, never. No, I should have more fear of fires. It's
Yeah.
more reasonable. I'm going to get hit with something like that, but no fear of fires. But I tell you what, we could have used a nice little tsunami at that time.
That would have been very helpful.
Mhm.
Yeah, that could have bailed us out.
By the way, the tsunami, which arrives, they know the precise time that the tsunami will arrive, was the size of, I described it as the size of a Skittle.
What does that
They're
mean?
like,
No.
okay, that was it. I was like,
No.
what do you mean that was it? They're like, that was the tsunami. It
so
was-
by the time it got to you guys,
they know when it'll hit. They don't know what size it's going to
Oh,
So it
was
didn't-
nothing.
be. It was nothing.
and it,
I was
so
kinda
then
mad.
Did that make Molly then write again?
Yeah.
Once we were on up at higher ground, I was like, all right, I want to see the tsunami smash into the side of this.
Yeah.
Now that we're okay,
Yes.
big deal. I lose some luggage.
Yeah, you want to see
Yeah.
something out of a Roland movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Emmerich, whatever his name is.
People also, the people I was with, all the other people from the hotel were like, isn't ABC going to send a helicopter or something for you? Like, ABC, ABC wouldn't send an SUV for me.
Okay, do you think that you willed that tsunami into existence? If you've
Oh,
been
that's a
thinking
great
about
question.
it
That's
your
a great
whole
question.
life.
If I have that kind of power, I probably shouldn't be in anyone's presence, but it's,
think
Well,
you
let,
did it.
let me ask you that though. That leads to a great question I want to ask you, because anyone who's had like you and I have had way too much luck in our life. It's like a suspicious amount of luck, right?
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
sure.
I mean, you're talented and everything, but
Yeah, a lot of it is luck.
Yeah, whatever. A ton of talented people, and like Elon Musk, he's a proponent of this thought that we're in a matrix, right? Have you heard
Is
him
he
talk
really
about this?
in-
Yeah.
Because he says a lot of things, and sometimes I think he's just kind of just throwing shit out there.
Yeah, and I have no way of knowing if this is one of those or he really believes it, but he certainly talks about it quite a bit.
Right.
And my take on that is like, yeah, if you're Elon Musk, this must feel like a matrix, because what are the odds you invented an electric car in this space program and you built this company you sold for $1 billion? Like, it starts to feel a little suspicious.
Yeah,
but
maybe
I
it doesn't
don't
make
think
sense.
a guy who's like roofing in the winter in Detroit thinks he's in a matrix.
If he is, he's in the world's shittiest
He's in the
matrix.
shittiest I doubt they go like, this is too perfect. This has to be a matrix. But to that point, do you, having been as lucky as we both are, do you think that you've willed weird things? Like, do you think there's some suspicious stuff? Like, have there been some moments where you're like, this something stinks here?
Yeah, I think it's smaller things. I think there are times in my life where I've made something happen because I think it's going to happen. I think
Yeah.
it's really the secret, right? Isn't
is.
it?
Yeah.
If you believe, and I do think that I always had like kind of this like yeah, everything's. I mean, I feel like I'm going to win every time I play any. It doesn't matter what it is.
Uh-huh.
I think I'm going to win.
Yeah, that's great.
And I'm
Yeah.
surprised when I don't. But then I go like, oh yeah, okay, it makes sense that I wouldn't win everything.
Well, I think you and I talked about it because you and I are both crazy obsessed with Letterman. He's like our god, right?
Yeah.
We agree on that. Stern and Letterman are both our gods. Is Bill Murray a god for you?
Yes.
Yeah. So for me, those are the three gods.
Yep.
And I think you and
Put
I
Steve Martin up there too, but Letterman.
I appreciate
and
Steve
Howard.
Martin, but he's
Yeah.
a little too G for me.
I got you.
Right. Bill Murray, you might end up in jail that night. If
He
you
means
hang with him.
gangster. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've been in that situation.
No. Yeah. I think Steve Martin's way too gangster. That banjo scares the fuck out of me. But I think you and I were talking on an airplane once that we would fantasize as kids about being interviewed by Letterman.
Yeah.
Did we
sure.
talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had, even in those moments where I was fantasizing about it, I didn't even have an aspiration to be an actor, so I'm not quite sure what I thought he was going to interview me about. But I remember,
Same here. I didn't know what.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Like, I would be brushing my hair at like 10 years old in the mirror. It was always in the mirror, and then I would just start thinking about the things he would ask me about what my bike or whatever the hell it was. But I kind of practiced in my head talking to him so many times, and I gotta wonder: is that Does everyone do that? Monica, did you used to fantasize about?
Yeah, but I'm in the same situation.
Yeah, you're an actor.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
So I think the difference is between the guy in Detroit and Elon Musk is like, and you two and me are constantly putting things out there where they're constantly like, I want this, I want this, I want this. Eventually I want this, fantasizing all your whole life.
Yeah.
The guy from Detroit is probably not doing that.
That's my
He's putting one
question.
foot in front of the other.
Yeah,
Probably.
maybe. I guess
so
that's kind of my.
eventually, some of those things are gonna come true.
Well, that
Maybe.
is true. I wanted to be super renowned and famous in any number of ways, and only a couple of them came true.
Right.
But yeah, I thought I was going to be like Bukowski. You know, in my
It's not too late.
It's not too late. What did I say the other day? I was going to learn how to do it. It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
I'm always trying to figure out when it's too late. Like I don't play the piano, and I still feel like I do need to learn that before I die. But is it too late?
To learn the piano? I think it is because I'll tell you why it's too late.
Thank you for telling me.
Because I don't think you're going to be satisfied with just being a shitty piano player.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're going to go like if you see somebody else playing the piano and he's really great, you're going to go, fuck it, I'm not playing the piano anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
that's
probably
true.
right.
You know?
Do you play the? You know what's funny about interviewing people for this show is I'm largely talking to my friends who I think I know, but then I'll read about them on Wikipedia. And have you done that ever?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's really fun because there's all these things I don't know about you that I learned like an hour ago.
Oh, really?
Like
Oh,
you
like
play
what?
you play the clarinet? Is
Yeah,
that-
I do. Yeah.
I don't know how I've known you for 13 years and I have no idea you play the clarinet.
It's because it's not like I whip it out at parties.
But there has been times
Well, you
I went
should.
through my head and I'm like, well, I've been in your room where you have instruments and I've watched people play at your
Yeah.
house and I never saw you fucking Ron Burgundy break out the clarinet and blow the shit out of
yeah,
it.
well, there aren't many songs you can play the clarinet
Lend
to.
itself.
I do have a clarinet. I have one sitting right next to my desk in my office at work.
And you play it in your office?
The only time I really play it is on the show in some way. Like I
okay.
played with the Killers once. I played with Huey Lewis.
Oh, really?
I think I had like a clarinet battle with an actress who also played the clarinet.
Uh-huh.
You know, but I'm not good at it. I mean,
that's what I was going to say. Out of 10, I don't even know who a 10 clarinet player is.
Well,
It's Brubeck.
oh, Dave Brubeck. Well,
Yeah.
he's more of he played the clarinet as well, but he's primarily saxophone player. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
So who's a 10 clarinet
Oh, like
player?
Pete Fountain or Benny
Okay.
Goodman or something like
okay.
that.
All right. So
Yeah.
that's a 10. And then
Oh,
I'm a 0.
If they're a 10, then I'm probably a 1.5.
Well, no, but I'm a 0.
Okay. Probably like a 3.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's exactly the number I give myself as a drummer. Because I can play the drums. I'm a drummer.
Right.
But I'm at best a 3.
Yeah, a 3, I'd say.
Yeah.
I mean, I stopped when I was in high school, so
that's what it
playing every
was. You
day.
played in the
I
high
played in the
school
band.
And
I accidentally played the clarinet.
that
which-
seems like a very weird choice for a young man.
It is a weird choice. I thought I wanted to play trombone, and I thought they were called clarinets.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, do you know how similar this makes us? Because
No.
I picked the trombone solely based on in elementary, the junior high kids came and showed you the instruments, and the guy went "Brrr" with the trombone. I was like, God, that's my instrument.
I always like that too.
Yeah, and then I picked it, and then I couldn't play it. It's a very hard instrument to play. And then my whole life I thought, why didn't I play the drums? Like, it doesn't make any
Something
sense.
that you could apply to the rest of your life.
Yeah, like high school life or
A
college
guitar,
life.
maybe, or
Yes.
something like that. I thought the trombone was called the clarinet, and I signed up in 6th grade clarinet
Simple
class.
mistake made all the time.
And I'll never forget my teacher, Mr. Barish. I got into the class, and I didn't have an instrument yet, and there were a few kids that had clarinets, and I said, excuse me, I'm in the wrong class. And he said, well, what class are you supposed to be in? I said, clarinet. And he said, well, this is clarinet. I go, no. And I made the trombone motion, and he started laughing really
the American
hard.
Sign Language symbol for trombone.
And he said, well, that's the trombone, and we can get you in a trombone class, but we have to, we'll have to go to the counselor and rearrange your schedule. And I went home that day, and my mother had, for the first time ever in my life, went and purchased something for me that I needed for school, and it was a clarinet. And I didn't know that you could return things.
Sure.
I was a stupid kid.
Yeah.
And so I felt guilty because
Yes.
she bought the clarinet, and so I just played the clarinet.
Wow.
Yes. And that
That's a
kind of
nice story.
it is a really sweet story, and it kind of parlays into another similarity I think we have, and maybe I just try to find similarities between us. But You are the most generous human being I've ever met in my entire life.
No.
I am not. You're 100%.
He's married to Kristen Bell.
Yeah. No, listen. You are the most generous person I've ever met in my life. I'm not the most generous. That's not the comparison I was going to make. But are you genuinely that generous, or is it somehow linked to that story you just told me, which I can relate to, which is I'm very codependent. I loved my mother so much, and if she would have brought me home anything, I would have just dealt with it.
Right.
And I'm wondering, is that
I think it's a combination of things. I think it's nice people say generous, but anxiety is one of them.
okay? Right.
But maybe more than anything, I like the challenge of finding a great gift, and I like to see what people's reactions are to the gifts.
I mean, it's your hobby, I gotta say.
Yeah, it kinda is,
Because
yeah.
I've received more thoughtful gifts from you than any family member I've ever had.
Oh, really?
Yes, you've given me, and I don't even know what the occasion was, but you had a pillow embroidered for Kristen and I.
That's right.
That had the tweet that she sent me proposing marriage.
Right.
And then my response. What fucking man thinks to do that?
I made you ping pong balls with
You made
your
with
face
my
on
face on it. Yeah.
You know, when you would eat sausage, that was a thing that
You took great pleasure
Yeah, I
in.
took pleasure in. Yeah, your love of sausage.
Yes, my deep love for sausage.
I don't know. I just enjoy
Is it a
it.
Catholic thing? I'm wondering, like that you would have felt
probably in
guilty
there
about
somewhere.
your mom having gone out of her way to buy this thing, and you didn't want to be a dick.
Well, money was always very tight in our family growing up, you know, and so then when you have some money, and also it's kind of, you know, it's a creative endeavor finding a gift for somebody.
Well,
So-
there's nothing like going into your garage about 2 weeks out from Christmas, which I've done a dozen times, and it's just floor to ceiling packages. You must buy, I don't know, 1,000 Christmas presents or something.
yeah, probably.
And
yeah.
are you doing it all year round?
And birthday also. Sometimes I'll see things that I think, oh, that's cool. And I know I have somebody in my life who is going to like that. Like, oh, for instance, speaking of Elon Musk,
Yeah.
maybe I
bought him a
shouldn't
nice
tell you
gift.
this because you were one of the people I had in mind for this.
Okay.
He started selling flamethrowers.
Oh, I read that myself.
And so I pre-ordered a couple
you
of
did?
flamethrowers.
Don't let that stop you from giving
Yeah,
that
he
to me.
wants
I would
that.
absolutely
By January,
love that.
you'll forget about it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you'll never know when that'll come in handy, because someone got me, I think they thought a little bit as a joke, but someone got me one of those fly killer guns that you put
Yeah,
salt in.
salt
Do
ones.
you have one of those?
Oh, yeah. I love those.
They're fantastic, it turns out. But the other day we have, I mean, even to tell this story, I'm going to get so angry. But, you know, we have 5 feral cats at our house, or 6 kittens. So it starts with that there's kittens outside, right, that Kristen discovers, and then she starts getting involved with them. And now we've got to capture them all and neuter them or spay them, whatever you do for them.
Right.
And you just can't imagine how much effort goes into that. Like
yeah,
my sister,
parents did this too and are doing this. Yeah.
it's a daily evolution. There was a point where I had 4 of the cats. They couldn't catch the 5th cat. So 4 were living in my shower for a couple days, and they're jumping all around because they're feral cats, and the whole fucking room smells terrible like feral cats. And I'm just asking, like, when do we think this project's going to wrap? Like, is there an end date that we give up and we re-release these 4? It took us a week to catch the 5th one. So we had all these cats, and it doesn't even end there. So then we capture them. One gets loose at the vet. One goes under the tub. My sister's going to have the whole tub ripped off. It all ends. It culminates with Kristen's got food outside for him, and now we have this gigantic raccoon. The biggest fucking raccoon you've ever seen in your life is now it's living in the backyard. And it's the size of like a Boston Terrier or something. It's quite large.
Really?
And we're laying in bed and we hear this thing ripping apart this food dispenser. It sounds like someone crashed into the side of the house. I look outside, this thing's just clawing at this thing. And I'm like, oh, fucking great. Now I got to get this raccoon out of here because we have a dog that's going to fight the raccoon, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what am I going to do? I can't shoot this thing with a real gun, obviously. And I go, ooh, the fly shooter. So I thought that's a humane way to shoot this thing, right? So I ended up going out there, shooting it, and it's very thick fur. It didn't like it enough to leave, didn't hurt it, it didn't cry, but I thought, look how this thing really came in handy.
Yeah.
Did you like that story?
Kind of came in handy because it didn't work.
It did work. I drove the raccoon away.
Oh, it worked. I thought you
with
were
my
saying
fly salt gun.
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes, I would love a suggestion.
Paintball gun.
Well, do you think that's humane?
I've been shot with a paintball gun a million times.
In fact, I've paid to get
not that
shot
bad,
with a paintball gun.
I had coyotes hovering in my backyard at one time. No, with my ex-girlfriend's dog, I was worried about. So I got and I didn't want to like shoot them with a BB gun.
This was in the Lake Hollywood.
Yeah,
house.
so I got a paintball gun, which I never had the occasion to use on them. But I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, and you don't have to tell me publicly if you got one. Maybe later.
I would tell you if I'd be pretty proud of myself if I got one. But
did you pick a certain color that you thought?
I think I got red or something.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those stories that could really backfire on us.
Yeah. No, I kept the paintball in the garage, paper gun in the garage with the canister and everything, and I had this idea that I don't know. I think they sensed that I got it or something.
Yeah.
Because they never came close again.
Yeah. When I was reading about you, I didn't know you had a controversy in Detroit. I'm from Detroit.
Oh yeah, I had a big. I almost got canceled. The show almost got canceled,
which I can't even believe. So, if it's true what it says on Wikipedia, you were basically there, and there was going to be a Lakers Pistons game, and you said,
"No, that's not what happened."
Oh, I'm already.
I was in L.A.
Oh, you were in L.A.
and the Lakers and Pistons were playing in the NBA Finals, and I said something to the effect of, I was being interviewed by Mike Tirico on ABC.
Okay.
And I said something to the effect of, well, I'm rooting for the Lakers because I really like Detroit and I hate to see them burn the city down if the Pistons win. Which, I thought, I don't know why I thought that wouldn't be offensive.
Well,
but
I'll tell you why it shouldn't be offensive. I'm from Detroit, and every Devil's Night, the night before Halloween, we burn the city down.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, how on earth could anyone have been offended? It's just a fact that we yearly burn the city down.
I think sports have a big part or a big reason for it, because when you say something and you're rooting for the other team, people descend on you.
They're already defensive.
They're already super defensive. And, I was a Lakers fan, stirring things up.
It's as if you had said, though, if the Bulls win, it's going to be windy as hell in Chicago. We burn the place down once a year.
Well, that's not how they looked at it. And they were very upset.
And they chose not to air your show that night in Detroit, right? Did that happen?
Yeah. Well, what actually happened was hearing everybody was mad in Detroit, as I am inclined to do, decide to double down and make it much worse.
Great.
And so I did that, and then they were really mad.
Wait, can you tell us?
Are you allowed to tell us what the double down was?
I think we did we did some bit involving fire and a lot of fire.
Okay, perfect.
And I don't remember what it was exactly. But the local affiliate was like, hey, we're here in Detroit. We don't need to be it's great for you being the hated guy, but we live here.
Yeah.
And we're going to pull you off the air. And I was like, all right, well, what are you going to do? And then one of the guys that works at ABC is like, you realize if you get pulled off the air in Detroit, the whole the show is like, that's it.
Really? What year was this?
This was the first year of the show.
Oh, wow.
And by the way, I wouldn't have been so upset if they had pulled the show off the air.
I mean, you're thinking there's a lot of cities in America we can live without.
No, I was thinking, great, I don't have to do this fucking job anymore.
Wow. Oh, really?
And,
was the show immediately a rude awakening? Because I remember, again, you and I were on an airplane. Let's just say this should have been stated at the beginning, but I did your show one time, but then we both happened to be in Detroit, weirdly enough, for some GM event. And then we flew back on a plane together, and then we sat together, and then we talked the whole time. We became buddies. Right. We started hanging out, right? And on one of those, and then we also flew together to some really janky version of UFC.
Oh, yeah, that was great.
Yeah. That actually was really great, though, because we had great barbecue.
It was like a UFD minus is what it was.
Yeah. And two gals fought, and it was before the level of fighting between women has gotten to the Ronda Rousey.
It was
level.
More like a bar fight.
It was like your sister and one of her friends fighting. And there was a moment where we couldn't decide if we were into it or not. Like, we were trying to give it a fair shake. And then one girl punched another girl in the boob, and she said, ow! Like, it was the saddest real ow. Where all of a sudden, our mother fell down the stairs.
We both felt very ashamed of ourselves.
We did. We were like, why are we here?
Why are we watching these women? Why
And
are
then
we
they
paying these
hugged.
women to fight?
Yes, and then they hugged and cried.
No.
Oh,
Yes,
it's
they
terrible.
hugged each other and cried for like 3 or 4 minutes, and we just kept going, Jesus, we got to get out of this situation.
I wasn't so excited about the guys fighting either, to be honest with you.
That was
it all
substandard
felt bad.
Yes, the whole thing was bad. Had we not had such good barbecue, the whole trip would have been a wash. But on one of those trips, I was saying to you, of course, having been obsessed with Letterman, that I always fantasized about having Letterman's job or your job. And you said to me, and it's so rare that I actually believe someone. And you go, it's so much more work than I think you realize it is. And then you just kind of walked me through what the commitment that the show is. And I really thought, oh yeah, that's too much for me. I don't think I could do that.
Oh yeah,
It's relentless, right?
it is relentless. I mean, it gets easier
And you have
as you
to
get
hate-
older, but it at that time, like at that time, the show was live at 9:05 p.m. And so we weren't even done with our work day until 10:06 p.m.
Wow.
And it would just start over again as soon as you woke up in
Yeah.
the morning. And it was 5 nights a week. And I was in an office that had no windows.
Uh-huh.
And I was there all day long. And I just was like, I'm going to die in this hole.
Yeah.
This is no good. And we had no guests. You know, it's funny.
And then you said something else though that was brilliant. It's like you said, once you do that, that's the end of the road. So if you don't succeed at that, you don't then go act. You don't do anything. That was your shot, and that's a wrap on you. For show business.
Traditionally, I mean, who, other than maybe doing another talk show on a lower scale,
Sure.
Yeah.
who does anything after a talk show?
Right. So it's all this risk.
And then, if it works out, it's great, but you still have to do the job. But at that
And were
time,
you thinking at that time, you know what? Fuck it. I don't want this bad.
yeah, I thought maybe if I get out soon enough, it won't have that effect. You know, I can go back
You could
and
do other
do
shows.
the man show again or something,
Yeah, because what was the workload on the man show compared
we worked
to
6 months out of the year. So we did, so we did a lot. We did 24 episodes in 6 months.
Yeah.
And then we had 6 months off,
Right.
or to do something else.
Yeah.
Which having that, that island with no pit bulls on it to swim to
Yeah.
is a huge, just mentally, it's huge. But at that time I was,
Have you
despondent.
hacked it at all over the years where you have figured
Yes.
out? You have.
Yes.
And what are some of the like big changes that helped?
Well, one big thing is that, no one at our show knew what they were doing.
Right.
Literally no one had only our head writer had experience in late night television as far as doing that particular job. And I'd saddled him with, just like a bunch of my buddies and
Family members. Yeah.
And so we really didn't know. Our booking system was crazy. We hired a booker from a magazine, and that the way they like magazine, like I think it was like In Style magazines, Popular magazine, like they basically tell celebrities who they don't want. That's how that
Right.
works.
Yeah.
There was no planning ahead. I always say that, people are so focused on the first episode of a talk show and like, oh, that first episode. But what everyone should really be focused on is that Wednesday's episode, because that's where you start to see what it's really going to be like.
Right.
So true.
Yeah.
That's where you really get
when you're
taste
out
of it.
of favors.
Yeah, when your lead guy's gone, your second night's big gas is gone. The bits you've worked on for the last 6 months to put in that show have now been spent, and now you're like, okay, what are you really gonna do?
Yeah.
Well, because Kristen hosted your show
Yeah.
last year.
Yeah.
Yesterday really was the 15-year anniversary of it because we premiered on Super Bowl Sunday.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in 2003.
That was your
Wow.
lead in?
Yeah, well, yeah, we were on that Sunday night.
That's pretty
That's
fucking
awesome.
lucky, don't you think?
It was kind of. Well, in a way it was lucky, and in a way it wasn't. It was lucky in that we had a lot of people watching,
But then you're going to
but also people were watching me do a terrible job.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that is rough. Parenthood had that same lucky thing, which was we launched on the Winter Olympics, and at that time nobody was watching NBC. Like 10 years ago, they were they were in last place, and that was the one thing people were watching, and it gave us a good launch because none of their shows.
That's still one of my all-time favorite network television shows.
Yeah, it always made me so happy to watch that.
So
I loved that show.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I loved doing it.
It was a great show.
Yeah,
I always felt like it was like it should have absolutely been nominated for and won Emmys every year, and I haven't figured out. Maybe it was because it was such an ensemble show, and nobody was the star of that show or something.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to separate myself from being inside of it and evaluating it that way because I'm like, I think we're doing something special, but then I'm like, but what the fuck do I know? I'm inside of it. But Minka Kelly, who was on the show, right? She was also on. So Jason Katims created and ran Parenthood, and he also created and ran Friday Night Lights. And so she was a guest star on the show, and we got talking at lunch, and I said, she's like, "Oh, Parenthood's so good," and I go, "Oh, it's not as good as Friday Night Lights. Like Friday Night Lights is the best fucking show ever." And she's like, "No, this is so much better than Friday Night Lights." And I'm like, "No." So we're getting in this debate over what show's better, and something weird happened where I was editing Hit and Run during one of the seasons, and I was so busy doing that I stopped reading the scripts. I would only read my part, so I was prepared to do my scenes, but I didn't know what was going on in the show. Then I started watching the show not knowing what was coming, and everything changed for me. Then I was like just a normal person, and I didn't know what was going to happen to all these people, and then I fell in love with it, and then I never read the scripts again.
Yeah, my wife and I, we loved it right from the outset.
Yeah, that really made me happy. But you were saying Kristen hosted the show.
Oh, yeah.
And
she hosted the show, and I was with her that day. And we were at the end so exhausted. And all we could say was like, how does he do this every day? That process of the rehearsal and then coming back. And I mean, I guess maybe it's different because they know you a little better writing wise, but.
Well, but you should, part of the thing is like, I'm involved in even the writing of like when the guest hosts are everything runs through me.
Yeah.
So it's about, in some ways it's harder to be the guest host because you don't know the drill and, you're not familiar, but in other ways it's actually easier because you have things going in.
There's a separation
to the show.
a little bit.
Whereas some days I walk in the show and like, I don't know what we're going to do on the show tonight. And we just have to figure it out at rehearsal.
Yeah,
and are those shows better or worse than when you do have it?
It varies.
It does, right?
Yeah.
Because I was watching Robert Downey Jr. on that Sam Jones show get interviewed, and it was really fascinating because Sam said like, how much do you prepare? And he said, well, I've done everything. He's like, I was Chaplin and I was Chaplin. Like I was Method and I did that. And he goes, and now I wear an earpiece and I have my lines said to me right before I say them. And he goes, I'm not adverse to the work. I just found that my personality lends itself to chaos. Like when I'm hearing something for the very first time before I say it, that's what's magic for me. And I'm like, well, that's really cool that he's done it's like Picasso. He painted normal before he did Cubism or whatever.
Right.
So I am curious, if you ever felt like when it's chaotic, somehow that's just as good, or there's a value to that, or it's too scary to proceed that way always, or
no, but I think you have to have a plan going in and be prepared to abandon it.
Yeah.
It holds true more for interviews because when I'm doing the monologue, it's just me standing out there and everybody has to know, like the director has to know what clips to go to, just from
There's a lot of
standpoint,
logistics to
there
it.
are a lot of other people involved. So you have to clue them in on what you might do.
Yeah.
But some nights, the nights where we don't really have things planned, those are the nights where we'll do some kind of whatever excuse is for me to go out on the street and just talk to people who are walking by.
Yeah.
And sometimes we call it foreigner or not, or sometimes we make it a quiz or whatever. Yeah. But ultimately, it's just me riffing with people outside.
Yeah.
And I like that because
By the way, that's what we loved about Dave, right?
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
to the deli owner.
It almost always goes well.
Yeah.
Very rarely does it not go well. And in a way, it kind of makes you go like, why do I do all the other hard stuff when I could just do this?
Yeah.
But I think if you did it every night, it would become
Yeah, like, are you
repetitive.
jealous of Stern? And maybe I'm wrong about that, the way that show's put together, but it does appear to me, at least, that he is large. There isn't a pre-interview when you go do his show, so he really is just chatting. I'm sure he's been prepared by Gary or whatever to hit some.
He's
points.
more prepared, I think, than most people would
Than you would
realize he is. I mean, he reads all the research about the guest.
Yeah.
He writes questions for the guests. He spends most exhausting of all when you're on the radio that's every day, and this is what's most exhausting, is you can't do anything for just for pleasure. You can't just kind of sit there and enjoy something. If you watch a television show, if you go out to dinner or whatever, you're writing little notes down. You're constantly aware of just to give you, because you need so much material. So like I was listening to Howard talk about the Super Bowl, and he's like, where are my notes? And like when he starts going through all these notes, you realize this guy didn't enjoy watching the Super Bowl at all.
Right.
He's working the whole time.
Mining life.
Yeah,
for
and
it.
that's why Howard, I think, watches shows like The Bachelor, because you get a lot more material from a show like The Bachelor than from a show that's finished and good.
Yeah, then Breaking Bad.
Yeah, it doesn't give you
Yeah.
much. So he is attracted to those shows that, an award show, something that's
Our
live.
treasure
It's
trove
easier.
of funny shit. To
Yeah,
point
because
out.
he doesn't have the luxury of being able to watch things just for pleasure.
Yeah. I can relate to that in that when I was in the Groundlings and I had to write 6 sketches a week for years and put them up every Wednesday night, like my whole life was that. You'd have a waiter that said something weird and I'm like, oh, there's a sketch there. You know? Oh, and then this happened at a traffic light. Oh, there's a sketch there. And it was kind of maddening. You're like,
It's exhausting.
Yeah, as you say, you're not actually experiencing life. You're observing it with the intention of making fun of it at some point. Yeah, that's a little. So do you hate John Oliver?
Do I hate him?
I mean, I know you love him. I'm saying, are you jealous of the fact that he has a week to do that show?
Oh, yeah.
And then he has
sure.
all this time off.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think in the future you will craft a show for yourself that
Probably not. I don't think so.
You're doing this.
I'll do this until I'm done doing this, and then that'll probably be that.
15 years is a long time.
Yeah.
In your wildest dreams, did you think you would be doing the show for 15 years?
No way.
And the one thing that they like, if I'm reading about you, there's just no explanation. And I know you and there's no explanation. How on earth did you go from the Man Show to even have your own show on ABC? That seems like a crazy leap.
There was,
a quantum leap.
I was on the radio for 12 years.
Yes.
And I was here on radio here in LA for 5 years. So a lot of people,
Kevin and Bean show. Right?
who were producers it was a very popular show.
Yeah.
And so they'd hear me, and so I'd get calls from this person or that, but mostly like to do writing or some little like commercial or something like that. And I just, I never imagined I'd be on TV. I just did it for money. But then I got Win Ben Stein's Money, which was a game show on Comedy Central. Mm-hmm. That was my first show.
Right.
And we started the same week as South Park. That was our show premiered that week. Mm-hmm. And that show was I was on that show for 4, maybe 5 seasons. And then it continued for 2 seasons.
Were you
after
doing
I
in
left.
radio simultaneously to
I was
that?
doing the radio. I was on the radio from 5:30 to 10 a.m. and then I'd rush right over to the studio and do that show from like 11:30 until 7:30 p.m. And I'd drive all the way home to the West Valley and start all over again early in the morning. That was a tiring time in my life, but that was only 3 months here or there. And then I was on Fox NFL Sunday for 4 years. I made football picks and I did a comedy sketch every week. And also, then we'd start doing the Man Show, and we did that for 4 seasons as well. And some of these overlapped with each other. And so I got to the point where I kind of had cornered the market on young males, as far as audience goes. I had that sports background.
And the Man Show was successful. You guys had a pretty big audience, right?
Yeah, it was very successful.
number 1 on Spike. Is that what it was on?
It was on Comedy Central.
Comedy Central. Okay.
Yeah, it was very, very popular.
Yeah.
Our last season was our most popular season. And in fact, they continued doing the show for another season after we left. They tried to continue.
They replaced you with Doug
Stanhope and Joe Rogan. Yeah. And so then ABC, I think, at the time, late night was very male. It was like the audience was like 70% male for late night television.
What is it now?
It's 50-50 now.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And but it was different at that time. It was very male oriented. And so they thought, we want to get somebody that guys, preferably young guys, like. And, it kind of made sense. Plus, I think I bowled the president of ABC over with my knowledge of late night TV, which was just from watching it,
Yeah.
And being
but they had never done it, right? They had never done late night, had they?
They hadn't done it since Jerry Lewis in the 60s.
Yeah, so
they made a
like
run
not
at
doing
Letterman, and he decided to go to CBS. But they were ready to go. And then once they'd already cleared that kind of spot, they said, well, you know what? We didn't get Letterman. Maybe we should find somebody else to do the show and find somebody that's going to be a lot cheaper, and we won't have to necessarily get the ratings that Letterman gets, but we'll make some money off of the show.
Well, who else was on then? Craig Kilborn was on the air then?
Craig Kilborn was on after Letterman, yeah.
And then who was after Leno?
Leno, after Leno. Oh boy, it's so crazy that this is now not coming to me immediately because I was so obsessed with this stuff.
And do you think your perceived knowledge of late night was like, oh, good, this guy will help us because we don't know what we're doing. He seems to really understand it, even though he's never done it.
I don't know. I really don't know. It was,
but they approached you.
They approached me, yeah.
And they didn't approach Adam, or did they?
No, they didn't approach.
Was
Adam.
That's like being in the
Adam and I had already decided to leave the Man Show.
Oh, you had?
Yes. Now.
And to do separate things?
Not necessarily do separate things. And in fact, Adam worked with me at the talk show for the first year. He'd come in, he'd write jokes. But we had decided that we didn't want to do it anymore based on one thing that happened. And this is so funny because I now know, looking back on it, that if we'd announced this to Comedy Central that we weren't going to do it anymore, they would have paid us a lot more money to stay and keep doing it.
Yeah.
But at the time, we were like, okay, we're not going to do this anymore. Adam was still doing Loveline at the time.
Oh, right.
So he had that radio show.
And that was very big then.
Very big. Yeah. It was a syndicated.
He was probably making all over the country. Doing that. Yeah.
Not a ton, but he was doing pretty well.
Yeah.
And at that time, I just thought, but what happened was Adam, we had a bit and we said, we're talking about like your dad's, like your friends' dads and what jerks they could be when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, my friend's dad, he's one of those guys. He said, he's one of those guys that would say like, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one. Yeah. And the audience, stink. instead of going like, oh yeah, that's the lame thing everybody says, they clapped and applauded. And Adam and I looked at each other like, this is it. We can't do this. We can't do this anymore. These people.
Yeah.
It's disheartening. So we decided that would be it. And I don't know what we thought. We had Crank Yankers at the time, though, going, and that was going well, too.
Yeah.
So we had some things happening,
So it wasn't like when, Hall and Oates are together and they approach Daryl and say, why don't you just be a solo act? It didn't feel like that to either of you.
Not at all.
Oh, okay, good.
And then we started working on a sitcom for Adam for ABC at that time. And he and I worked on that together. And so, we were going to do separate things, but the plan always was, and still is to a large extent to this day, that we would help with each other's projects.
Right.
When he replaced Stern in LA and Phoenix, Seattle, and the West Coast, I was the executive producer of the show. We were always kind of involved in each other's things.
Yeah. But you didn't pursue that show. They just literally approached you.
Yeah. Not only did they approach me, they misled me. They told me they wanted to talk about a Thursday night variety show, which I told my agent, I was like, I have no interest in that. And my agent said, listen, the president of ABC wants to meet with you. This is not some like development person.
Right.
You need to, if the president of ABC wants to meet with you, you should give him the courtesy of a meeting. I said, well, I don't want to waste his time. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
And when I got in the meeting with Lloyd Braun, he never even mentioned the Thursday night variety show. He just started asking me about late night and what I thought. And I started talking about Letterman. And then I went home and I called my agent. I was like, I don't know what that was about, but he seemed like a nice guy. We just talked about Letterman the whole time. And my agent was like, oh, that's weird. And I got home, and Adam Carolla's wife was an assistant at ABC.
Oh, really?
And she called and said, they're going to offer you the late night spot. And I was like, what late night spot? They have no late night spot at ABC. And she's like, they're going to offer you a late night talk show. And sure enough, the next day they did.
Wow.
And I said yes, and that was that.
And were you terrified, or you were just
I was
excited?
confused, I'd say, more than anything. I was just kind of confused.
Yeah.
And then we had to like build a set and, you know, come up with a logo. And like you just get caught up in all this.
Yeah, and people probably forget you also had like a different format, right? You'd have like a guest host every week, right?
Yeah.
That would join you for the whole week. How long did that last?
That lasted for about 2 years.
Uh-huh.
That was hurting our guest bookings. I kind of enjoyed it, and it helped me get through those early years where I wasn't really capable of hosting a show on my own, but I was capable of sitting with somebody and talking.
Yeah.
It was a crutch. And in retrospect, I'm glad we got rid of it. But the real reason we got rid of it is it made it hard to book guests because, you know, no publicist is going to book Gwyneth Paltrow when your co-host that week might be,
Dick.
Mike Tyson or Andy Dick or something like that. You know?
Yeah, that's pretty tricky.
So people were kind of like, well, we'll wait to see who your co-host is. And we never had that planned in advance.
Yeah. But I would say there's a few things that right out of the gates, like while pursuing directing, there's a little voice in my head that has said, you're not a big enough asshole to be a great director, because invariably every single great director that's working, you hear just terrible, terrible stories. And I'll think, God, maybe I'm not a big enough asshole to be a really good director. And there are a couple things about you. You're actually social and normal. You're a normal human being. You go to your house, you're friendly, and you enjoy being around people, which is pretty rare for a late night talk show.
I don't think it is anymore. I think it was.
Well, of course, time. Letterman's as weird as it gets, right?
Yeah, but none of the guys on now are weird. Like literally none of them.
Well, Fallon's not. Yeah, but you started that.
Fallon's not weird. Colbert's not weird. None of these guys. They're all nice guys. They're all like, I mean, honestly.
But the history, right, is like, is Carson was a recluse kind of, right?
Yeah.
And Letterman, certainly. Stern, admittedly, although now he's learned to become social, right? Leno's not hanging out with anybody, really, to my knowledge.
Yeah, but Leno was always chatty with people, and he'd come in and talk. You know what I think it is? I don't think anyone who's on now has the cachet and the kind of mystery and status that any of those guys.
Yeah, I guess
you can't really. Like, nobody's going to tolerate me being a reclusive asshole. You know, they're like, oh, really? Oh, fuck off.
Yeah. But then the other weird thing, because I've done all these talk shows and I've done a lot of them several times. You also have this unique thing where you're not panicked, which I think is kind of unique about you.
Do you find that other?
Yeah. I feel like there is. You have a very relaxed kind of interaction when I'm on your show and when I watch you. You're not sprinting to try to get the next laugh. You're very comfortable and relaxed, which is, I think, a kind of a unique characteristic.
I think it's from radio. I think it's from being on the radio for 4.5 hours every day
and just getting used to
silence. Yeah. Being comfortable with a little bit of silence.
Well, now let me ask you this though, because you have told me interesting things about it over the years, which, like, one thing is the whole show's about the monologue, right? That's really what people, that's your ratings.
That's 80% of it. Yeah.
Yeah. That blows my mind. I would have assumed it's all about getting Tom Cruise on your show, but really it's the monologue is your show, basically.
You want a consistent high level of guests for sure, because then I think it's more about like kind of what people expect and what their perception of the show is but individual guests, there are maybe 5 of them that will actually
bump your ratings.
Yeah, bump your rating.
Yeah, I have to assume people watch your show or they don't.
Yeah,
in general,
pretty
right?
much. Yeah,
yeah. And then so what other things? Because you've discovered all these things. So the format changed. You got rid of the guest host, and then you kind of struck gold with the viral videos, right? That was like a huge kind of new.
We either
chapter
struck gold or
ruined
everything.
yeah, right.
Probably the latter.
Because that's a hard machine to feed, isn't it?
Well, it's not even that. It's just that it's taken away. Like, there's no urgency to be in front of your television at 11:30 anymore.
Because I can see it later.
Like, do you remember watching Letterman? Like, I remember falling asleep once when Shirley MacLaine was going to be on Letterman, and he always had a war with her. Every time she was on, it was something uncomfortable happened. And I remember I was up, I was ready, and the next thing I knew, it was 3:00 in the morning. And like I was despondent.
Yeah.
Right. I knew
Tragic.
Right.
it would never,
Yeah,
I'd
like
never
you
have it again.
missed a game of the World
Yeah.
Series.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah.
And, just that kind of, that urgency is, because it's almost like with record albums, like you don't have to buy the whole album because you can just cherry pick
Yeah.
the thing you want to see.
Yeah, it is true. And look, I have 2 little kids. I go to bed early. When I see your like highlights, I'm definitely seeing it the next
you
day
see
in
it,
general.
that's it. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's funny because you work so hard on the whole show and then, it's just like one little piece of it is what people see. And
yeah, but that aggregate's now being acknowledged, at least, isn't it?
it is.
So even if you have like a little compartment of your show that is,
It's
hugely-
acknowledged, but it's the amount of money that the show makes on like YouTube compared to the amount of money they make from television advertising.
yeah,
It's 10% of our revenue is from online viewing, and online viewing is we get 50 million people watching a week, online.
yeah, that's
Wow.
crazy.
And
If
yet,
you got half of that watching live, you'd be making $100 million a year.
well, you mean,
I mean, like
personally.
if
I
nightly
see.
25 million people tuned
Yeah.
into your show,
Yeah, I mean,
it'd be Modern Family times 3 or whatever.
it's
is
pretty
the hit.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of my you're kind of mean too. You like to play jokes on people. You ruined my birthday party one time. You came over and I am
You can't ruin a party when it happens at the end of the party. The party was over.
no, and when I think of that birthday party, I only think of that coffee pot.
But I like to believe that you knowing how happy it made me actually made you happy as a result.
Well, that's what kept us from ever getting in like a fist fight over it. But what had happened is I like to make my coffee the night before, and I set a timer so it'll be ready when I wake up in the morning. This is like the most important part of my whole day, is that when I wake up, the kitchen smells like coffee. And so I had gone through the whole process. I'm also cheap as a motherfucker, as we just discussed on the way up. Neither of us will heat our pool.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think that's reasonable. I don't think that's cheap.
Yeah, we'll both pay for like 14 friends to eat at a restaurant.
Right.
Like $1,000, but I will not heat the pool for my children.
If all 14 friends get in the pool, I'm okay with
That's
it.
true. That's true. There is a time and place to heat the pool, but in general, I won't do it. So, I make myself 10 cups of coffee and I buy Starbucks. So this is about a $4 pot of coffee I've made. And because there was a party and it had gotten switched to the brew mode and not the auto on mode, I made the whole thing. I hit the button, which I thought was arming it for the next morning. I go into the living room, we play ping pong, and I smell coffee all of a sudden. I'm like, why the fuck is the coffee going out? Right. So I'm inordinately mad right out of the gates that this coffee is brewed. So then I go back in. I have to no one's drinking coffee at 9 o'clock at night. So now I pour out 10 cups of coffee in the sink. That makes me even madder. And then now I remake it. Now my stepdad watches me remake this coffee, and then he sees me hit the thing. I've now put it on auto on. I now go to play ping pong again. My stepdad thinks, oh, poor guy, he meant to brew a pot of coffee, but he put it on the timer. So he puts it on brew and brews it. So now I'm playing ping pong. I fucking smell the coffee a second time. And now my reaction is as if someone drove a car through the living room. Like, I am so angry that now I'm out 20 fucking cups of Starbucks coffee. I like storm in there. I'm actually yelling in the party, don't fucking touch the coffee pot. Like, no one touches this coffee pot. I pour out the coffee. I make a whole new batch of coffee. Go back in. I'm playing ping pong. About 15 minutes later, Kimmel goes, all right, man, I'm taking off. I'll see you later. And the fucking door shuts, and then I smell coffee. He went in there and brewed a third pot of coffee.
I remember you looking out the window, and I hadn't told Sarah, my girlfriend, what I'd done. And
You
we're
must have been so delighted getting in your
looked out the
car.
window. And I was like, of course, tears were streaming down my face. She's like, what did you do? You do make more coffee?
I mean, I had actually embarrassed myself. Like, had even the
that
third
sounds-
pot not happened, definitely everyone at the party is like, he's
What am I supposed
irrationally
to do?
upset
You had
about.
no
Not
choice.
start the coffee.
Yeah, you had to.
Yeah, so then I then dumped 30 fucking cups of coffee down and made a fourth batch. But then, and this is where I'm not mean, you had left your wallet at my house. Do you remember that? You drove away, and then later I found your wallet.
Yeah.
And I should have poured coffee
Yeah.
all over it and then given it back to you.
Yeah,
But
I would have understood.
The only mean thing I've ever done to you is that, assuming because your job is to basically monitor how stories are going. Like if someone's on your show and they're telling a story and it's a dud, you've got to save them. And this is what your occupation is, to keep things interesting. So on this trip where we went and saw this low level UFC thing, I got to the airport way before Jimmy did. And I met a guy there that happened to also be on our plane. And he told me it was a 40-minute story about getting a swing set to his house in Hawaii. It was the most boring story I had ever heard in my life. I couldn't believe it was being told. I was just the whole drive on the dirt road. I heard about every mile of the road. Right, this story was so bad, and we get on the airplane, and Jimmy's sitting directly next to him, and I go, "Hey, Mike, tell Kimmel that great swing set story." And then I just got to sit there for 40 minutes. It was worth me hearing the
It
story
was great
all
too
over
because
again.
your endorsement made me think it was like
good.
going to become
A
good.
huge payoff. Like
Yeah.
someone would have died installing this swing set at some point, but it just never got. The punchline of the story was it was a functioning swing set
Wow.
that he had spent
But
thousands
I
of
did that
dollars.
same thing to Gary Shandling once. There was a guy, we were having dinner. It was Kevin Nealon's birthday, and there was this guy there, and he was like one of these guys who're like, "Oh, please don't sit next to me," kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he told a terrible story, and the whole point of the story was just to tell us that he knew someone famous,
Right.
and that was the whole thing. It's like one of those stories.
Well, by the way, that the whole swing set story was about how rich this guy was.
I
'Cause
see.
The
Yeah.
ultimate punchline was that he had about 120 grand into this swing set. That's why we heard about it, because he had to go, "Oh yeah, so I have to put it in my Suzuki Sidekick. I only own that car just on the island." Like there was all these things he owned he didn't use, whatever.
People always think they're clever with that kind of
Yeah,
shit.
they're not going to
You always
outfox
know what
us.
it is.
Yeah. You should have just told me you're rich, dude. That would have taken 30 seconds.
This guy tells this terrible, terrible story, and Gary Shandling like just bails and says, "I have to go to the bathroom." And he gets up. He gets up. He starts as the story begins, and then he goes to the bathroom. This guy tells the story, and Gary comes back and sit down. And I said, "Hey, Gary missed the story," and he starts telling the story again. And Gary whispers, "I've never seen the side of you before." We got to hear the whole story over again.
Great.
So now that you've got the show kind of dialed in, and by the way, it's visible on you. I think this has happened to both of us. You wouldn't know this probably, but there's the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So Rob McElhenney, have you ever had him on the show?
Yep.
He's one of the creators.
Yeah, I know
a
Rob.
good friend of mine.
Caitlin, his wife.
Caitlin's
Great.
husband. Yeah. One of my favorite people on the planet. And he pointed out that the weird thing about sitcoms is that the actors get progressively better looking on the sitcoms because they're getting rich, right? He's like, if you look at the first season of Friends, they're all like 6s. And then by like the 8th season, they're all 10s. You know what I'm saying? Like they're getting the facials and they have a good stylist. and
Right.
everything. So he gained like 60 pounds in the off season of It's Always Sunny. So he did one season as a fat ass, which I just think is the greatest decision to make for him, not me. But likewise, when I come out onto your show, and I think I always bring it up, I'm like, you're getting better and better looking, which is very suspicious. And I think I am getting better looking as well, because I have a picture of me, you, and Bradley Cooper at that birthday party you ruined.
Oh yeah, right.
Didn't I show? I sent it to you recently. We look like we're at the Greyhound.
beaten up.
Yes, it looks like day one at a treatment center.
Yeah,
we all have terrible bags under our eyes. Our hair, we have terrible haircuts. Everything is bad.
We're hovering over a Scrabble board.
Yes, I I'm trying to remember if I posted that picture, but I mean, it's a career-ending
showed it.
photo. Maybe I brought it to your show or
Yeah, I
something.
think you showed it on the show.
Well,
But are you aware of the fact that you've been basically getting incrementally more handsome every year?
Part
Like
of
you've
it-
gotten thinner. Your hair somehow looks thicker.
well, it's definitely the weight loss, but
That
my hair
helps.
is definitely not thicker.
but
For
you're
sure
doing
not thicker.
something that it looks so robust to me
Well,
every time I see you.
I had some bad choices wardrobe wise, and I had some bad choices makeup wise.
it's a learning curve.
I had vampire sideburns also. Part of it also is the style. When styles
Yeah.
change, you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
look
yeah.
weird when you
Yeah.
look back. But losing. I never. It's funny because I used to make fat jokes about myself, and that was part of my act.
Yeah.
But I never actually thought I was fat.
right.
I was kind of lying each time I would make it. I was
Yes,
like,
you felt
Chris,
fraudulent about it.
it's just another area I was able to go. And because I was a skinny kid, and so you have that in your head, like you
Yes.
kind of what you were. I was like the skinniest kid in the area, and so I always
in
thought
the
of
Las
myself
Vegas
that way.
metropolitan area.
Yeah, but now I look back and I'm like, oh wow, yeah, I was pretty fat, like actually fat, and that's the way to go. Adam Carolla always says, like, when women for their wedding will like diet and lose a lot of weight and whatever. He's like, no, you go the other way because you don't want to. That picture's on the mantle. And you don't want to look at me like, boy, you've really put on a lot of weight. You want to have the opposite.
That's
You're like,
smart.
wow,
Yeah.
you look great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's my philosophy.
That's happening. Because I'm assuming you feel that way about me, don't you? A little bit, because generally when I walk out on stage,
I always thought you looked good, though. I mean,
well, thank you for that. But I do find that when I walk out on stage, because quite often it's been like 8 months since we've seen each other or something. And we walk out and I find myself like startled with how good looking you look.
Well,
and then of course I'll be wearing a suit, which you never see me in a suit. And then I feel like I'm reading on your face that you're startled too.
Well, we look at each other. First of all, we're dressed nicely, which look at how we're dressed
That's
right now.
right, yeah.
Secondly, we're groomed. We have makeup on.
Final touches.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of like hair filler in and stuff.
Yeah,
I have a powder.
We look nice. We've got
Yeah.
a fake tan, like kind of.
If the
painted
sprinkler
onto us.
system came on in the studio during our interview, I would have mud dripping down my head.
I'd have all the black paint that's on my bald spot showing.
It would just be, we would just have mud drizzling down our faces.
But yeah, and also, I think the beard has helped because I don't really have a masculine chin. So the beard is definitely.
It is
been
a
helpful.
really good look for you. But I'm
My
just always
daughter last
so
night,
proud.
She was touching my beard and she goes, "Why is it white? It's getting white." And I said, "Well, I'm getting older." And she said, "Is it going to get white?" And I said, "Yeah, it's going to get white." She goes, "You won't be a daddy anymore." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "You'll be like Papa."
You'll be a grandpa.
It's when you're too old to be having kids.
When
Yeah,
you're a
yeah.
grandpa, automatically.
Yeah, right to grandpa.
I trip out on that a bit. Our kids are the same age. And I think, oh man, when they're in high school, I'm going to be that kind of older dad. I mean, maybe not in LA here.
Yeah,
but
imagine
certainly-
how I feel.
Right,
Yeah.
because you're a couple years older than me.
Yeah.
And do you
Yeah, I
spin
think
out
about
about that at all?
Yeah, I add up like when I did it last night as I was going to bed. I was like, okay, I'm 50. My daughter's 3 years old. When she's my age, I'll be dead.
Yeah. I think to myself, I'm going to have to be extremely healthy to watch her graduate from college or get married or have a kid. Like science is going to have to intervene. CRISPR is going to have to work. All these things are going to happen.
My daughter is my dad was my age when I had my oldest daughter.
Yes.
So it's like I look at it that way. It's like,
Oh,
I'm like,
me too. When my mom was my age, I was graduating college.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Crazy.
very scary. There's only two more things I really want to talk to you about. One is you weren't super political.
Right.
That's fair to say, right? For 13 of the years, you
Yeah,
weren't
but
You
very-
mean publicly?
I
mean on the show.
there was always, that was part of the show. Yeah. It's
Sure.
just become much more a part of the show.
Well, I guess in general, you're always going to be making fun of whoever the president
Right.
is and that kind of stuff.
And some presidents give you more opportunities to do that than others.
Yeah, certainly this one's a mine.
Fraud.
He's right at the top.
Yeah, he's really up there. But you've gone further than that, obviously with healthcare and stuff like that, which clearly is motivated by Billy, and that makes a ton of sense. But I'm wondering, what's the kind of internal dialogue when you're deciding whether or not it's an issue? Because as you probably experience, it comes at great expense too, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And it's that I don't care who you are, that stuff's hard to weather. Even when because I have my little causes that I'll do on Twitter, you know, and whether it's pro-life or it's gay marriage or whatever the thing is. And even though I should be able to write off the people that are sending me hateful things, I should be able to just go like, oh, whatever. It does affect me. I'll read stuff and then I'll go, oh, that doesn't affect me. But then I'll find myself in the car 2 hours later and it's in my head.
Yeah,
and I'm
me
thinking
too.
about it.
I think the same thing.
And I can't outsmart it. Like I try to tell myself, you're having a fight with the guy in front of 7-Eleven who's got a parrot on his shoulder. If you were to see this guy you're fighting with, it's probably someone you would write off as too crazy to even talk to. But so knowing that, how do you, what's the calculus where you go, fuck it, this is worth it?
Well, I think, you know, I think sick children, that's definitely in the.
That seems like, a pretty slam dunk.
That tips the scales.
Yeah.
I think that I also go into these things, maybe I'm a little bit naive, but I go in thinking that everybody's going to agree with me.
Sure. Yeah. Because you'll make your point so well that you'll open people's eyes.
Well, it doesn't make any sense that they would do anything other than agree with me.
Yeah.
I'll do that too. I'll form a statement or an argument, and I'll think, and I'll try to think of every single retort, and I'll think somehow I've cracked it, and I've actually come up with the message that can't be retorted.
Yeah.
Right.
And you feel like you're also, you go into it with the same mentality you go into any conversation, but the people you're having conversations with are people you know or work with or are your friends. So you feel
they're
like
in your silo, basically.
Yeah, you can convince anyone in your circle of almost anything.
Sure.
Or at least they'll nod and go along with you and you'll think you convinced them of it.
Yeah.
But then you realize like, oh, wow, like these people think I'm attacking like something that they have or they hold dear.
That's probably a part of their identity. I think that's when it gets really sticky, is when people's identity feels threatened.
I think there's an undercurrent in this country, and I don't think it's entirely unfair. I think there's a group of people who think there's another group of people getting something for free. They're not working for it. They're not earning it. And in fact, you could even take it to another level, and you could say like it's hurting them, the fact that they're getting services or whatever, or welfare, or whatever you want to call it. Whatever that, when they get that disincentivizes them to work or to think about the future. Blah blah. It's
going to hurt them.
And I think that there's truth to that, you know. But I think that a lot of liberals will say that's not happening at all, or it's happening in a tiny bit. And then conservatives will say that's happening all the time and in a huge way. And it's probably somewhere between those two things.
Well, and I think you and I are both naive in a way that I think we both actually think we're way more centrist than our friends are out here.
Yes,
absolutely. So I make the mistake quite often is I actually do think I understand more the other point of view, because I feel like I'm more centrist than, say, my wife or a lot of her girlfriends. And so I go, oh, no, I get them. And then I make a statement and then I realize, oh, no, I don't get them as much as I think.
And then it's funny, though, how you get cast because people know you know, talking about this or that, whatever.
Well, you know, when I started realizing this must really be happening to you a lot is that I have now been doing your show for 13 years. And every time I've been on, I promote that. You know, I'll tweet about it, right? And now I will tweet about it and I'll get a handful of people that like launch into some crazy thing, and I think, oh well, shit, he must be getting that daily if I just tweeted this. I'm a fucking guest on the show, you know. I'm not endorsing Kimmel, even though I would. You know, now I'm under attack. And then there were signs around LA, right? You posted a picture of you flipping one off.
Yeah,
like that had to be a surprise, right? That someone would take the time to put up signs of you.
Yeah, signs of a picture of me crying, and I forget what it said, and it's some conservative street artist who uses the fonts available on Microsoft Word. That's the kind of artist
You're right.
we're dealing with.
The level of artistic.
Yeah, he's a
ability.
real artist. He thinks of himself as like Banksy, but
Yeah.
but
And then I get, of course, because I love you and you're my friend, I get this really protective streak, and I'm like, well, that says everything about those motherfuckers. That would be an insult to be emotional. Like
Yeah,
that
it's
to
so
me tells
stupid.
you everything about like that it's that simple, like that a man doesn't do that, and then I get really pissed, and the whole thing aggravates me. It's not even happening to me. But I'm wondering, because when I'm doing the calculus, right, and I'm not in your position where I have to do a monologue every night, but do you say to yourself sometimes, I catch myself, I'm about to do something, and I go, you know what? That's actually someone else's job. That's Bill Maher's job, or that's Sam Harris's job, or that's, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
there are people who that's what they do. And I've sometimes, probably post-election, I've pulled back a bit and thought, it'd be one thing if my voice was needed, but my voice isn't needed. Like I don't.
I totally get that. And I do. And there are times where someone else, whether it be a television host or whether it be somebody who's written something, who says what I would say.
Yeah.
And if that happens, I don't say it because I feel like, okay, good. That
Yeah.
person covered that and took care of it.
Yeah.
But like at the time with Billy and the healthcare, I didn't feel like anybody was saying it.
They weren't. No,
and-
you had a really unique opportunity to make that a personal topic, and I think it's awesome that you did. And then for Chris and I, when we were super vocal about gay marriage, there wasn't a ton of actors out there. There wasn't a hashtag for it. There was, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I believe in this, and I'm willing to get these tweets or whatever. But a lot of stuff now, I feel like there's so many voices. already
President
on that side.
Obama didn't support gay marriage until his
totally.
second term.
Yeah, we were hosting rallies in New York, and he was saying he would not just being quiet about it, but saying no, he won't.
I mean, that wasn't that
It was
long
5
ago.
minutes ago. I get a little pissed, and again, this is where I feel like I'm centrist. Is that remember when the Russian Olympics happened, and a couple of their big complaints about the Russians were that they were killing dogs in the street getting ready for the Olympics.
Right.
And I'm like, we kill 1 million dogs a week here in America.
Yeah,
It's not like
right.
we don't kill dogs. We're doing it in a shelter. You can't say that's unique to them.
Yeah.
And then their policy on gay people. I'm like, 5 minutes ago, our president said he wouldn't support it. Like, we can't be on a fucking moral pedestal, 10 minutes later.
Yeah, we
which
love
we
to
do
that,
a lot.
though.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, we forget that 2 hours ago, we had a completely different opinion.
Yeah, we love the human rights and
Oh, yeah.
all this stuff. We criticize other countries, and then you drive past somebody who's been sleeping on the same corner every day for like 3 years.
Yes. And then so my final question I had for you is that so Kristen just hosted the TCAs, and that was a
She
The
hosted the
SAG
SAG
Awards.
oh
My
yeah,
God.
I'm sorry. Oh boy, yeah. So she hosted an acronym. Okay, yeah, she hosted the SAG Awards, and when she got asked to do that in November, this seemed like a very fun thing to do.
Right, yeah.
Right. And then this very important movement happens. The Me Too Time's Up thing happens. And then the Golden Globes are almost solely, from my perspective, about that issue.
Yeah.
And now she was then in a position where, oh my God, this whole show now is about how much do I acknowledge it? How much do I not? Who wears the pins? Who doesn't do this? And just the fucking weight of hosting that show now, it is so tremendous that, I mean, she seemed to be fine with it, but I was like, this really takes the fun out of it from my perspective. And do you feel at all going into hosting the Academy Awards of like, fuck, man, this is why this year am I hosting?
Yeah, and it doesn't help to be a white male either.
Oh, yeah, it's the last person that needs to be up there.
Yeah, right. Like nobody wants to hear what I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's, it's tricky, and you don't even know, you can't even prepare for it a few weeks in advance because you don't know where
hourly.
people's heads are going to be,
Yeah.
And there's, something new like every 3 days.
Yeah.
So it's hard to figure it out. I mean, I think I have, a general sense of, and I've been in this situation before where there was some touchy, whether it be like, Oscar So White, that, that kind of thing. And the Emmys.
What was that?
When
Oscars are so white. I thought you said Oscar Del White.
Oh,
like
no,
that
no.
was a Latino director who won or something.
But there seems to be some cause or some kind of problem or something each year.
But and this is where I can a little bit see the point of view of the conservative middle American viewer, which is my memory of Whoopi Goldberg hosting or Letterman hosting or City Slickers hosting. It wasn't political. I mean, there were maybe there'd be one or two jokes, but there was not a theme of that award show every year, like whatever social issue they were tackling. It just wasn't like that.
Right.
And I can't see I can sympathize with the critique of like, hey, just fucking celebrate the movies, you know?
Yeah, right. Well, not only that, you think about the people who are there and who are nominated.
That breaks my heart.
This is something they have been dreaming of their whole lives.
60 years somebody's been pursuing this thing.
And they don't want that cloud over it.
Yeah.
And they don't want that, to have to apologize.
I
for
felt
being
bad
there.
at the Golden Globes when Guillermo del Toro wins. But it starts by going like, okay, here are the all male directors, and I'm like, oh, way to piss on this dude's. You know, he comes from fucking Oaxaca, Mexico. He found his way to this country, and he's our best director. And
I feel the same way.
I just was like, oh my god, this is ruthless.
Especially for him, because he is.
Yes.
It's funny. I thought of him when you were saying all the directors are like assholes, and I was thinking, not him.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's certainly nice ones, but you hear amazing stories. So you're gonna have to acknowledge it, obviously, and that'll be that. Can I just want to air one grievance about the Academy Awards while I have you here, because this is as close as I'll get to being able to tell anyone anything.
Okay.
They always say 1 billion people watch that show.
I don't believe that either.
It's such a fucking horseshit.
Super
And
Bowl
let me just tell you,
not 1 billion people watching the Super Bowl.
Can I tell you why?
Yeah.
Why I know this? So the Academy Awards, what 50 million people watch in America? I think. I mean, we get the real numbers. That's
Academy
not a
Awards?
mystery.
Yeah,
50 million, or even
somewhere.
the Super Bowl is like 110 million.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the Academy Awards is getting 50 million viewers, and we are a country of 300 million, that means that only 1/6 of Americans are watching it.
Right.
Right. But in order for 1 billion people to view this worldwide, 1/5 of the world would need to watch it. So you're expecting me to believe that
I don't think 1/5 of the world speaks English.
Exactly. You're expecting me to believe that the interest in this award show actually goes up as you leave this country. That's what would be required for them to get to 1 billion.
There's no way.
Yeah. Where do they get off saying this? I feel so offended by this.
All I know is I've been out of the country when the Super Bowl was. There was one year I was in Europe or something, and a television with the Super Bowl on was not to be found.
Didn't exist, right?
No, people are like, what? No, we don't know.
Yeah. Super.
It's too late. Nothing is open.
That's the one accent you're allowed to do, by the way.
It's Italian. Yeah. Hey, I'm half Italian. I can do it.
Yeah. I'm so upset I don't have any clear distinguishing. I can't really do anybody.
You could do an English accent. You'd be fine.
It's the one I can't do. Monica
can't
and I, we were just talking about this. The only ones I can seem to do are not
in his
English.
You could do Australian also. You can get away with
Well, I
it.
do that quite often, and solely because, do you ever get pizza from Lucifer's Pizza?
No, but I've heard you've talked about it a lot. You order as an Australian?
No, the fucking outgoing message for some reason is an Australian. I don't know why, but this is the outgoing message. Thank you for calling Lucifer's Pizza. We've got 2 locations, Melrose and Hillhurst. For a Melrose location, press 1. For our Hillhurst location, press 2.
That's it.
I don't know why they would have picked.
It doesn't get you in the mood for pizza.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean you want to have barbecue or something?
It's a good pizza.
Eat a kangaroo.
It's worth it.
It's worth going through it.
Yeah.
But now my new thing is I love Peaky Blinders so much. Do you watch Peaky Blinders?
No, I don't, but my brother loves it. He loves it too.
Great.
Damn it, is it good? You have to watch it with the subtitles on. That's my caveat. Because I tried watching it without it, and I thought the show was terrible.
You can't
And
understand.
I didn't realize
You
I was
understand
missing half of it,
anything.
but I was arrogant enough to think I was understanding everything, but then I had no interest in the show.
This was happened to me with Ricky Gervais's podcast. I was like, I can't understand. I missed 40% of this.
yes. Do you know who Sam Harris is? You listen to you probably
From
know this.
Star Search, you mean?
Do you know what's so funny? Someone said that today when I brought him up.
Really?
I'm like,
Sugar
yes,
don't
from
bite.
Fucking Star Search. Now he has this huge podcast.
Sam Harris used to co-host Dancing with the Stars. Samantha Harris, is that what you're talking about?
No. He's the one who got in a fight with Ben Affleck on Bill Maher about Islam.
Oh, okay, right, yeah, okay.
He's a neurosurgeon. He's a fucking one of the most.
He's not a neurosurgeon.
I'm sorry. He's a neurologist. He has a doctor.
He's neurotic.
He has a
Correct.
He has a doctorate degree in neurology from UCLA, and he's also a very outspoken atheist. And his podcast, he has like Harvard's professor of psychology on. So everyone he has on is a genius as well, right? And when you're listening to the podcast, I am like. I'm running on a hamster wheel as fast as I can to understand what they're saying. And I can keep up in my car. Like I can follow what they're saying.
But he has no accent though, right?
No accent. He's just
He speaks very slowly, actually.
He's just that smart, right? And what they're talking about is so dense that I just really have to pay very close attention. But I can keep up. So I'm so obsessed with him. Kristen, for my sobriety birthday, reached out to him and said, would you go to dinner with us? He said yes. Very nice of him. We go to dinner and everything was going pretty well, but then all of a sudden plates started arriving, right? And then they wanted to know if I wanted a refill on my soda, and he was mid-conversation, and I lost him. I completely fucking lost him. He must have spoke for 12 minutes where I didn't know a thing he was saying because he's so smart, and in a real life setting with distractions, I just couldn't keep up. And I just found myself like nodding and everything. And at the end, I was hoping like that was that the conclusion. And I was like, that's a tremendous point. But I completely for 12 minutes didn't understand a word he was saying.
I do that every single night with the guests as we talk in between the commercials and the band's playing so loud I can't hear anything. And I know we have a finite amount of time and I can't go, what? And, so I just nod and go, oh, and we're back.
I speak really loud to you though on the break.
Well, I know what you're saying. But there's some people that are older. There's some people, aren't quite as assertive.
Yeah. And then, so some of your guests are obviously, they do a ton of the lifting for you. And then a lot of times you just have fucking duds,
like
right?
you, like when you're on, I'm like, whew, all right, I can take a solid 1/3 of the show off.
I'm so glad to hear you say that because I've in an egotistical way I've thought maybe that was the case, but I would have never had the balls to ask you that. But I wanted to. I was hoping I made it easy for you. That's really all. But because I'm a neurotic, I'll leave and I'll go, fuck, was I doing him a favor or did I just steamroll him for 8 minutes?
We like that's what we like.
Okay, good.
And I speak for all of us when I say that.
Okay, great. All hosts.
All hosts, yes.
But do you try to control that in any manner? Like if you know you're going to have 2 guests that evening, do you go, no guys, that's 2 duds in a row. I got to have.
I wish that I was able to, I'm not really involved in the booking process and the pairings.
You get what you get.
So you kind of get what you get.
Yeah, it's whatever the special soup is of the day. You're
exactly
there. Okay. Well, from the bottom of my heart, I know how fucking busy you are, and you have 2 little kids like I do, and I appreciate so much.
Can I go pee on your land? Is it because I really have to go, and I know there's no door on the bathroom.
You can pee anywhere you want on this property.
Thank you very much.
Correct.
And we'll just take a couple stills while you're doing it.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
For the website.
I love you. You've been a great friend of mine, and you've always been really generous.
Thanks. This is fun. I'll come back if you'll have me.
Yeah. Well, what will be fun for you is you'll be able to kind of monitor the progress of rebuilding this dump.
Get a coffee machine in here. We can really have fun.
Speaking of our money neurosis, I have one right there. I have a Keurig.
Yeah, I'll hit that on the way out. Yeah. Keurigs are no good for me. I need the whole pot.
You should fire up a couple pods though. While I'm
like,
outside.
These guys are wild. They're constantly playing great pranks on each other. Like Jimmy made coffee once.
These wild, crazy Hollywood guys. All right, I love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay tuned if you'd like to hear my good friend and producer Monica Padman point out the many errors in the podcast you just heard. Monica, before we get into fact-checking the Kimmel episode, I just want to acknowledge that there's a ton of noise happening around us. And what is it, Monica? What are we hearing? What are the listeners hearing?
Wood, metal being thrown into
a huge
vessels.
Dump truck. Yeah. There's a lot of concrete being loaded into a dump truck about literally 3 feet from the microphone, just on the other side of the window here in our clubhouse. So don't be worried. Don't think that your house is crumbling.
It's not an earthquake.
It's not an earthquake and your car is not breaking. It's us. Okay, Monica, what do we got?
Okay. So you said that twice you mentioned that Jimmy has 2 kids,
Oh, he has 4.
but he has
kids.
4 children.
Yeah, I was probably talking about the new kids.
You were talking about the kids
Yeah,
because his other children are not kids,
they're not kids. They're grown-ups.
but they're always his kids.
That's true.
So he has 4.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you mentioned that you have never done anything that requires instruction.
Okay.
And you really haven't, but you've done a couple things. You've done some things. Improv
Oh, right. I did learn that.
required some instruction. I don't know if you took the instruction, but you were in a class and you.
Well, I certainly received the instruction. And if I recall, there were 5 ways to add information to a scene, but I can only remember 2 of them.
Okay.
The tops.
But you kept your ears open in that class.
Yeah.
And then you maybe learned how to do some car stuff.
That I really did just figure out by
All of it?
disassembling things, paying attention while I was disassembling them and going, oh, well, they must go back together the way they came apart.
Got it. So nobody taught you how to do any of that stuff.
When I was in 12th grade, I rebuilt the engine in my Mustang, and Ken Kennedy's neighbor, Mark Toth, did show us how to, put the right pressure on the bolts for the heads and whatnot. So, yeah, there was some instruction there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jimmy talks about a book on tomatoes,
Oh,
a very thick book on tomatoes.
Yeah.
And it's called Ripe.
Oh, that's the book he read.
It's called Ripe by Arthur Allen.
Okay.
There was a lot.
Not Ethan Allen, the furniture baron of.
You can't find it
Okay.
at Ethan Allen.
Okay.
I Googled, big book on tomatoes, and you would think one would pop up and it would be very clear. So many books on tomatoes.
Oh, really?
I had to ask Jimmy's wife what the book was.
I'm
in order
glad
to
that
find
Molly helped us.
She helped us. Okay. Then when you were talking about the food in Turks and Caicos, you said the food gets brought over from Miami 500 miles away. And you're very close. It's 575 nautical miles away.
Which could be upwards of like 600 normal miles, right? Nautical miles
we're talking
are
about
longer.
nautical miles.
Yeah, I think they're a little longer than our standard mile.
Okay. And then Jimmy said,
They're really loading. Can you hear? There was a big cement dump in that
Can you
dump
hear it,
truck.
Rob?
I love it.
Oh, great.
Okay.
Jimmy mentioned that the raindrops in Bora Bora were so heavy that they had a pint of rain in each one.
Well, I know. Yeah. I think you're nitpicking here. I think he was clearly in the world of hyperbole.
He
at that
was,
point.
but this is my job.
Okay.
Don't come at my job.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
So I tried to research how much water a raindrop could hold, and I couldn't find anything.
Yeah. How would anyone know?
I don't know. There are scientists who do all kinds of things. I don't know.
Sure.
But I was able to find out how much rain a cloud can hold.
Oh, okay. Let's hear that.
So scientists estimate that 1 inch of rain falling over an area of 1 square mile.
Okay, that's a big area.
Well, yeah, is equal to 17.4 million gallons of water.
Holy smokes.
Isn't that crazy?
That's a lot of water.
And it would weigh 143 million pounds.
140. Oh, okay. All right. Well, a gallon of water is 8.8 pounds, I believe. So if we do that, I know I like to bury you under more claims. Okay. I believe it.
Me too, because I looked it up and it's real.
Yeah.
Jimmy was saying that he didn't know how close or how far he was from Japan when he was in Bora Bora. He was like, I have no idea where I am in context to other places. And Bora Bora is 5,831 miles from Japan.
Basically 10 times the distance from Miami to Turks and Caicos.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's nautical miles, and this is regular miles.
Oh, okay. So but still in the ballpark of 10 times the distance. Wonder how the vegetables taste there. Well, actually, I know. Yeah, but maybe they're not coming from Japan.
I doubt they're coming from Japan.
I just conflated 2 different topics.
When you were talking about your scariest moment in Bora Bora, you said there was a little island and then 200 feet and then another little island and then 200 feet and another little island. I actually couldn't find the exact footage in between. I really looked hard. I had a really busy week last week. So
you did.
So some of this.
You had a very good week.
I had a good week and a busy week. So my research had to stop at some point.
Absolutely.
But Bora Bora, the island group is 12 square miles. So I don't know where you were in those islands, but there's a chance you swam 12 miles.
Well, here's what I can say is, the little chain of islands does make pretty much a circle if you look like at an overhead of it. And then there's this big island in the center that we were talking about where Jimmy was evacuated to.
Volcanoes.
So that ring, I guess they're saying is probably 12 miles, right? Or if it's 12 square
saying
miles.
12 square.
Well, that's a little confusing.
It looked more like, it didn't look like a circle to me.
It didn't?
When I looked on the map.
Well, okay. It does completely surround that center island. And it's all shallow in there where it's the area that's surrounding. But let's just say, what I will say is that from where our hotel was to where they were filming on this barge was about half of the ring of the archipelago.
Okay.
Yeah. So I might go so far as to say that I did travel 6 miles.
6 miles.
Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. The French restaurant.
6 miles while being chased by dogs feels like 100 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be scared. I'd probably give up. The French restaurant is maybe called, because I found a few.
Let's see if it rings a bell.
Is it La Villa Mahana?
Don't know.
Or Lagoon?
I don't feel like it'd be Lagoon because it was up high.
Lagoon is by Jean Georges. So that's a fancy restaurant.
Okay. None of those ring a bell. The only thing I can tell you is that it was a way away from shore. It was uphill a bit.
Well, I really wanted to find out because people will want to know that in case they go.
Yeah.
So,
and who knows? We were there 8 years ago, maybe. Oh, it was Obama was elected the first time while we were there, so 2008. So that's 10 years ago. So who knows? There might be a proliferation of French restaurants on that main island at this point.
Yeah, and they're all good.
Yeah, they're all 5 stars.
Okay, so the article Jimmy wrote about his experience in he wrote a
Huffington Post piece.
Yeah, it was in Huffington Post.
Okay.
And it's called A Dramatic Story at the End of Which Nothing Happens.
Oh, what a
so funny.
What a great title.
But it still exists on the interweb and you can find it and read it.
Did you read it or did you just find it?
I just found it.
Okay, that's
but I want to read it.
You had a busy week.
I had a really busy week. I'm going to go back and read it.
Okay.
I promise.
It's really well written.
I bet. The title alone is perfect.
Yeah.
So you referenced generally, you said a Roland movie.
Oh, Roland Emmerich?
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that. And he directed Independence Day, The Patriot, Godzilla.
What was
The Day After Tomorrow?
There we go. Day After Tomorrow is the one about the crazy weather, right? I think so. Yeah. There's like a tidal wave comes through Manhattan or something.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Sorry, Roland.
Sorry.
I think he's German, right?
Yeah, I
he's
would
probably
guess.
Not listening.
We don't know.
Know.
We'll find out.
Wie geht's?
Wann
hast du dein Geburtstag?
You referenced Robert Downey Jr. on Sam Jones' show. And I just wanted to give Sam a little shout out. That's called Off Camera with Sam Jones.
Yep.
And it's an interview show on DirecTV's Audience Network. And it's a podcast as well.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And then you said every single director working as an asshole.
Were you able to substantiate that claim?
I just wrote not true.
Okay, not true.
It's just not true.
Okay, no. There's Ron Howard's a beautiful
I've worked with
man.
some that are nice.
Yeah, almost everyone I've worked with has been really nice. You'd put me in that category, though, right? You worked
I
with
put you
me
in
as
medium.
Okay, medium.
I'm just kidding. Of course you're nice. You said if nightly 25 million people tuned into Jimmy's show,
yeah,
it would be Modern Family times 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So today's numbers, I have some inside scoop on Modern Family. So
I know you do.
I was really able to get.
Yeah, your roommate
some
is a
accurate.
producer on Modern Family.
She was. She's no longer.
Okay.
She works on another show now. And my old roommate also was the writer's assistant on Modern Family.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. So today's numbers, Modern Family has about 6 million viewers an episode.
Okay. So
it'd be
I
about
underestimated.
18.
Yeah.
But at its height,
Uh-huh.
it had about 12 million viewers an episode.
Okay. But let me just point out too that I was saying he's getting 25 million a night, right? So 5 nights a week. So 125 million views per week.
Yeah.
Whereas there's only
That's
one Modern Family
true.
episode on per week.
That's true. Is
So
that what you were saying?
I was, yeah. So he'd be making $1 billion. If you can bring in 25 million viewers a night, each
Right.
night they're quantifying that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But it's kind of, yeah.
he'd be a billionaire.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
would be. But it wouldn't be, it would, those numbers don't
I
equate
shouldn't
to
have
Modern
used it.
Family
They
times
don't.
3.
Oh, you're right.
And then, okay, you said we kill 1 million dogs a week in America.
Oh, geez. That's not true.
And we roughly killed 2.6 million dogs and cats. So that's more than
Sure.
just dogs. In U.S. shelters annually.
Okay. Great.
So not a million.
I mean, not
dogs
great,
a week.
but that's
better
a lot.
than 1 million dogs a week.
Yeah, that'd be 52 million dogs and cats a year. But suffice to say, I don't believe that they killed more than 2.4 million dogs to prepare for the Olympics in Russia. That was my overall point, is that we were so judgmental of them killing dogs.
Right.
Again, I don't want anyone to kill dogs, but we do kill dogs
Yeah,
here.
we do.
Quite a
2.6 million a year. Well, that's including cats.
And I don't want to offend cat lovers, but I do hope there's, well, no, I don't hope anything.
What do you hope?
I
really want to know.
I just hope that the ratio favors the dogs and
Me
that combined.
too. Me
yeah,
too.
which I shouldn't
Ugh.
say. I'm sorry, cat
I'm
lovers.
really sorry, but
Yeah.
I do not like
I
that.
just, I really am drawn to fellow pack animals. You know, we speak the same hierarchical language.
I'm scared that we alienated a lot of cat lovers, but I also need to be true. We need to be true to ourselves.
That's right. You got to, you're nothing if not honest.
Mm-hmm. You said Guillermo del Toro is from Oaxaca,
Oh, that was probably
Mexico,
wrong.
and he's from Guadalajara.
Guadalajara. Okay.
Yeah.
Did he go to film school in Oaxaca?
I stopped at the
Okay.
fact.
I could be partially right in that I think they all met in film school in Oaxaca, but
Okay.
it doesn't.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But he's not from there.
No. That's sexy, Guadalajara. I like that. It's got a sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They say, okay, so you're upset because they say 1 billion people watch the Academy Awards.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said 50 million people watch the Academy Awards in America, and we're a country of 300 million. So 1/6 of Americans are watching it, which means you said a lot of stuff about the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
So the Hollywood Reporter did some investigation on this as well in 2015, the billion viewer figure. And that statistic appeared in 1985 and then just keeps getting cited.
Uh-huh.
But they say the more accurate figure is several hundred million. It's still a lot.
Several hundred. I still don't buy that.
No, they broke it down by country, and I wrote a lot of them, but they had a lot more.
Okay.
But they had 37.3 million in the United States.
Okay. So
Fi-
even less than I was.
Less
I was
than.
being gracious.
You were.
Yeah.
Less. And then 5.5 million in Canada. That's the next biggest.
Oh, this will never add
no,
up
but it
to hundreds
does.
of millions.
There's so many countries, Dax. There's so many.
270 countries or something.
Latin America, 5.45 million. India, they love it. 4.5 million. Mexico, 3.8. Middle East, 2.2. UK, 1.08.
I'm sorry,
There's
this
a ton
does
more.
not add up.
Several hundred million.
I still think it's bullshit. I mean, I respect your fact checking, but I also
not.
I continue to call bullshit. On this.
Why? There
Because
are
if
numbers.
only 37 million Americans are watching it, that's 1 in 10.
But even if 1 million
Iranians.
in all the countries.
Yeah. All right.
Then you're already at
I don't think
200 and something million. And we have 3. It makes sense.
It's such an arrogant claim. I stand by
The
that.
billion is a problem, but
it's an
several hundred
embarrassing
million.
claim.
We're coming up on it. Okay, the current U.S. population is 323.1 million.
I'll round down to 300.
You rounded down.
Yeah, I'll continue to do so on this
I think
podcast.
you should be accurate now that you know the facts.
I already knew it was 320, but
it's
sound
323.
okay, you sound like an
0.1.
asshole saying 320. Just keep it at 3. Like, look, India's got about 1 billion people, right? Let's just say that.
I'll find out.
And then
the exact
China's got like about 1.5 billion people. Just say it, out of convenience and efficiency.
I think you should say the truth.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to post all these figures all over the walls in this room.
Yeah, so you remember exactly. Sam Harris just wanted to
Double shout out.
clear up his credentials.
Yeah.
Because first you said he was a neurologist, then I corrected you. Then you said he has a degree.
No, I said he was a neurosurgeon accidentally.
Oh.
Which he's definitely not a neurosurgeon.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think I don't know what you said, but you said he has a degree in neurology.
Yeah.
From UCLA.
PhD.
Sam Harris's credentials are he has a BA from Stanford in philosophy and a PhD from UCLA in cognitive neuroscience. So
does that go under the umbrella of neurology?
I do
guess
not know.
Okay.
That's all.
That's it. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
And then I wanted you to find out exactly how many pounds Rob gained.
Oh,
I asked
and
you to
I
do that and you
didn't-
did not.
I did not
follow
do that.
through.
We'll just pepper that into another fact check.
Okay.
Completely off topic.
Okay.
No one will remember. Let's say I interview Diane Sawyer. She's still with us?
Yeah, I believe
Okay.
so.
So let's say I do that. And then you just say in that fact check, you said Rob McElhenney gained a bunch of weight. What was it? Because no one will remember.
Okay.
All right.
That's all.
Love you.
Love you.